You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Adler and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is our day one coverage of Star Wars Celebration 2023. So it's no big surprise that in this exact room with me right now is the first host of the Cantina Cast, along with me, Jonesy. I'm already sick of you, but how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. I don't care if you are.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here, honestly, and I do mean that with all sincerity.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's been really cool. It's been an experience crawling under desks, pulling stuff out, messing with lights, messing with equipment. Nearly dying this morning in the car with you.
Yes, and more on that later when we talk about Heir of the Empire. And the other person that's with us is Lauren. Lauren, welcome to the show. I know you've been busy today, and hopefully you've gotten caught up on all the exciting stuff, but how are you?
I'm good. There is a lot coming out of Celebration today, so I'm a little mind-boggled.
And we've had the better part now of maybe 6 hours to kind of digest a lot of this stuff. Although it feels like it hasn't been enough time, even now, right? Even prior to coming on the show, I'm like watching stuff that is being released by IGN and other things. This is all stuff that didn't happen at Celebration, but probably is relevant given, who they're speaking to and what they're talking about, more contextualization of some of the stuff that was released. So this will be a kind of an ongoing conversation. So again, this is our coverage of day one. We'll be back tomorrow to do two shows on Sunday and the final kind of wrap up show on Monday. And then I guess Jonesy and I were kind of talking about it. We're probably going to have a series of other shows where we'll get into some more specific details around trailers and, speculation, theory, all that stuff. So this is really kind of meant to kind of be a recap of day one. We're definitely going to get into some of the details and some of the specifics that were announced today. But let's get into this. And Jonesy, I'll start with you. I guess, what are your takeaways? What's your kind of overall impressions of Star Wars Celebration Day 1, London 2023? And then based on what you've seen on social media and certainly as you've been going through it, how does this compare to past celebrations that you've been to?
It's a very, very different experience than what we've had in the past already because we can figure out what's going on, which is really peculiar for us, being able to actually find out what's happening, see what's happening. I've actually enjoyed watching the Celebration live stage, which we didn't do at all when we were at Celebration, last year. We
may have walked by, stopped, looked, and then just kept on moving because there was too many other things to see, but we've never sat down like this.
Right, yeah. And so there's a lot of screenshots I took just to give people a flavor as we walked through it, but there were some really fun panels, the Mandalorian. Well, not panel, but just having the guests out to talk just live. These are 15 or 20 minutes long. Go out to StarWars.com, watch them. They're worth your time. Some of them are actually really, really interesting and really, really fun and just a lot of energy around it. But other than that, I mean, gosh, getting the Ahsoka trailer was, I guess, kind of a surprise because we thought maybe they would save it for tomorrow. But honestly, not arguing, right? I mean,
right.
And getting the name drop for Heir of the Empire, getting a little glimpse of Thrawn. What?
Heir of the Empire.
I didn't say that, did you?
Boba Fett. No. Yeah, you did.
Oh, okay. Well,
sorry. Keep going, though.
Yeah, but just a lot of fun. I mean, getting more for Andor, getting little glimpses of Andor was really, again, not prepared because this is still filming. I mean, they won't stop filming in this until, what is it, August? I think.
Yeah, I think that's what they said.
And so a whole another year away. So it was really great, though, to get more Acolyte. Just a lot of great things today. So it was really off to a really strong, great start. So I'm really excited so far.
And Lauren, was there anything for you? I know you've had a chance to see maybe some of the leaked footage. We're going to talk about some of that without really get into a whole lot of spoilers and down into the details, but haven't had a chance now to see some of the spoilers and certainly all the other announcements. Is there anything that stood out for you and kind of what were your overall impressions of what was announced and discussed today as part of day one?
Yeah, well, going off of what Jonesy said, I was surprised that we saw Andor as well. I was prepared for it to be a long time before we heard anything about Andor. So that was nice to see, and it got me really excited to get back into that story. In addition to that, I'm really excited for Acolyte too. Like, I feel like after I saw that trailer and just got the limited details that we've gotten about that show, I still feel like there's still a lot that we don't know. But based on what we do know, now my excitement for that show has gone up like a ton.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, Lauren, have you had a hard time keeping all of the shows straight as to what content is in what so far? Because I can't keep it straight.
Yes. And yeah. And also, like, with all of the, when you're watching all these trailers back to back and you're looking for little details, it's easy to just kind of be like, okay, I don't know what's going on anymore. It's brain explosion. But
Yep. And it's funny too, because the one thing that's thrown me off the most is the Ahsoka trailer and seeing the orange lightsabers Inquisitors. And I see that and I think, oh, that's Acolyte. And I've seen a lot of people going back and forth and talking about it. And a lot of this is really kind of conflating and getting crossed over. So there's probably some some of that naturally happening. Wow, this is a very fragile setup we've got here right now. But yeah, so I think that's where... Yeah, no sudden movements or big sweeping movements that I'm used to doing here. So I've got to keep my hands to myself. But yeah, definitely I'm getting some wires crossed as well. Yep.
Yeah, especially with between Acolyte and Ahsoka, it just feels like these two could just be fit so closely together, and they're not 150 years apart.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. But that's what really makes it special, I think, is because all of these do feel... They feel so connected. I think that's probably a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's definitely not a bad problem to have where, we're getting so many trailers and so much announcements and content that it's an overload, but no complaints about that.
Right. And supposedly they're going to make some movies.
Oh, yeah. I think they mentioned some movies as well.
That little thing again.
Yeah. So we'll get into that too. Like, I guess for my kind of initial overall impressions of what stood out for me and things I was excited, I'll start by saying this does feel like this is the second coming of George Lucas. Filoni's name has been channeled and spoken about. I mean, Jon Favreau went up there and basically, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but was like, this guy did everything. He's responsible for everything. He's almost the future of Star Wars. And we've been hearing about this, right? That they were giving more and more creative control. Of course, he got his new promotion a year and a half ago or whenever it was. So this all kind of lines up with that. But then even just now, I was watching an interview that was done with IGN, and we'll maybe get into that sometime today, if not later, maybe in day 4. But she had the same thing, right? She was still kind of talking about the context and the coming of Dave Filoni and just how much this entire franchise really is on his shoulders at this point. And although that may seem kind of scary for some people or maybe a little overwhelming for some others, I think there are a lot of people that would get on board with that. Like, he's been a good steward of this franchise and a good steward to George Lucas and the mythology and trying to stay true to all of that. So they couldn't have this in the hands of anybody better, in my opinion. So I'm all on board with this. But then on top of that, to finally get announced that he was going to have his own directing movie. Now, you and I have talked about this before for a couple of years now. Certainly when The Mandalorian first came out and he had his first kind of gig with that opening episode, we had talked about whether or not this would eventually lead to him doing some kind of a big motion picture. We've talked a lot about the transition and how I feel like he has gotten better. If you think about it in the full context of things, he's only had 2-3 live action episodes.
Really just a few directorships. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm not taking anything away from him. Like, I'm excited about it. This is, again, going back to that IGN interview, Kathleen Kennedy mentioned that this has been in the work for like 10 years now. So we know he spent time with Rian Johnson during The Last Jedi filming. I would bet he did some time with the folks over during The Rise of Skywalker. So even though he may only have 3 episodes under his belt, he certainly has the know-how. He has all the background knowledge. He's been involved in the movie production piece of it all. He has the blessing of Kathleen Kennedy, the blessing of Jon Favreau. So, all things are pointing to him, I think, going to have a successful career. We'll have to see. It's pretty exciting, though.
Well, he's got so many people around him that can help, right? Rick Famuyiwa, Jon Favreau, Kathleen Kennedy's experience. They've just got so many people within the Star Wars community in general. And
rooting for him. Like, they're all behind him, right?
They're all, it's all Team Star Wars at this point. And I think that's really cool to be able to have. It's not all just on, because remember, one of the biggest challenges that George Lucas had was it was just him. If he didn't write the story, if he didn't get things rolling, if he didn't do it, it didn't get done. And now you have someone who has that same kind of energy, but now we have a whole group of people who can help bring that to life, help deliver it in different angles so that he can help tell stories in other places too. But now he can have the responsibility and the ownership over his own specific story too, which I think is really pretty exciting for Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
And Kathleen Kennedy, I mean, we've seen some other interviews outside of all of this, and she's super excited for those opportunities for Dave as well.
Yeah. So that was a big one for me. I mean, of course, the movies, and we'll get into that. I was excited also to see Miss Sunshine's bringing it up right now, but the timeline that they kind of revealed, which isn't insignificant. I mean, most people would look at that and go, okay, yeah, that'll kind of make sense. But, you know, that is almost a framework, right? I'm looking at this more as a framework. And so now you're going to have, and they've kind of confirmed just as much. In fact, again, going to an interview that happened afterwards, Kathleen Kennedy is, and Filoni said this as well, Star Wars is kind of, where do you want to be, right? You want to be in the future? They got something for you. You want to stick with the Empire stuff? You're covered. You want to go back 25,000 years? They got you covered now as well, too, yeah. Right? So this is great. And this is kind of what we've been talking about ever since Disney Plus, ever since the acquisition of Lucasfilm from Disney. You know, the Star Wars is larger than what it used to be. There's so many different flavors, and this is really opening up those floodgates now. The test will be whether or not these things actually do well, you know, whether in sales or subs for Disney Plus, but it's there. The content's going to be available.
Right. I'll tell you what, why don't we get into some of it then?
We can do that. Sure. Let's talk about, all right. So what we're going to do is kind of go through the day one events almost chronologically as they happen. And so we're going to start with Andor.
Well as we remember them chronologically.
Yeah. We'll start with Andor, and we are going to have some visuals for anybody that's watching the live stream. You'll have that. We'll do our best for anybody listening to the podcast to kind of explain some of the stuff that we're looking at here. So starting with Andor, it was great. The panel I thought was amazing. Anytime Tony Gilroy is up there talking about this project, and we were just kind of off, you know, before when we were both sitting here just watching this, commenting about how passionate he is and how there's a level of it's my way or the highway kind of to him. And he's always had that. I mean, I think that's a credit to how successful the series has been. He wants it. It is in Star Wars. It is Star Wars, but it is in, you know, it's 100% Tony Gilroy's writing and the story that he's trying to tell. And yes, it just happens to be in Star Wars, which I think is what made Andor really successful. But overall, the panel was great. Any comments or any thoughts on the panel as we watched it?
No way out, one way out. Just
one way out, right?
It's pretty incredible for anybody that watched all of this. Like, one way out has just been a theme. It's been a theme in the crowds, outside of the celebration, on the stage, everything. So it's really cool to have that. And that speaks directly, I think, to what you're talking about with the passion that people bring to this because of the passion that this project has. When you listen to any of the panels or any of the interviews, the amount of fun, the amount of interest, the amount of respect, and the amount of just heart they're pouring into this show is just palpable. You can just feel it every single moment. And it's just something really special. I mean, I get goosebumps thinking about every time they talk about it, and just everything they say is just absolutely, you just feel it. It's just this energy that emanates from them more so than any other project I think I've seen so far in Celebration, but just in general as well.
Yeah.
And so this is one of those panels and one of those Celebration Live things that people should go watch, because listening to the Tony Gilroy talk, hey, I've never heard so many F-bombs dropped on live TV, live Star Wars before.
Yeah, it's because they're in London, right? They're much more tolerant of this stuff over there in Europe, I think, is where it's coming from.
I think there were slip-ups before, too.
Okay,
it's all live, right? So you kind of get with it. But there's been a few from a number of people,
right?
Which is just kind of amusing to me. But it's really fun to see this. And I love that Tony Gilroy, like you say, he's kind of my way or the highway. It's more of this idea of, this is what I want to do. This is what we need to do. Mm-hmm. If you're not on board, just don't hire me.
Yeah.
And when they hire me, go all in and stick with me. And so that's where we're at. And we're seeing the dividends of that. I think it's paying off in spades.
Yeah. We'll get into the specifics of that series, but I know, so Lauren, I know you had a chance to kind of watch now, by the way, we talked about, to be fair, there were a lot of things that were unofficially released. This is one of them. So they did show, I'm not going to call it a trailer. It was more like a series of clips, I guess. I don't know how you guys would want to characterize what we saw, but it was kind of a series of clips of stuff that had already been filmed for season 2. Now, again, that filming goes all the way through August 2024. So we're still a long ways away before this thing's even released, but it was surprising to see some of that footage. So Lauren, as you were kind of watching that, I guess, one, I would imagine you were pretty surprised, but what else? Was there anything that stood out in particular? Any characters that you may want to mention that stood out in particular?
Well, I will say quickly, I wanted to add on to what Jonesy was saying and what you were saying too about Tony Gilroy's my way or the highway thing. For me, I feel like he has proven that he has a story he wants to tell. And I think that's great because I think
Yeah.
that that's something that we need more of is like that drive to tell a very specific story and get it out there. I think that there's lots of projects that would benefit from that sort of mindset.
That's true.
So I do love that. I like that attitude. But yeah, I mean, from the trailer, I mean, I was surprised to see it, as you said. I'm interested to see what's going on with Bix. That stood out to me that in the trailer, she seems to be okay. Is that
Mhm.
what y'all saw as well?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, because I personally, at the end of last season, the ending for her character was troubling for me. So I'm very interested to see where her story goes.
Yeah.
So I was excited to see her, and I'm looking forward to like actually getting more into her character going forward.
One of the interesting things about like just where the character is at in general, I think Mon Mothma, really, there's something brewing with her, right? This is the, like when you talk about Seeds of Rebellion, this trailer really started, or I guess teaser, more so than anything, or sizzle reel, whatever you'd like to call it. I think this one really started to highlight that she is going to be, she was already prominent in season 1, but she's going to be very, very engaged in this one. And there's going to be this transition. Is she going to leave the Senate or anything like that? I think we're still a little ways away from, we know a little bit about this. So maybe we should pause on that. We should go back and kind of recap,
Right.
recap what we do know about Andor season 2 just to start.
Yeah. So season 2, the way it was described, and I guess this is how we've deciphered this, but essentially there's going to be 12 episodes. And of these 12 episodes, they're going to be in these, what they're calling pods, right?
Right.
So basically 3 episodes are going to be a pod. And each one of those 3 episodes will take place in a matter of a few days in 1 year. So by the end of this, we will have seen 4, if you want to do the math, we will have seen 4 years of footage in 3 episodes post the finale of season 1 of Andor, right? So that's where I think we're going to, I mean, it feels like aggressive, like, and originally, just to kind of give some context, when this was first announced, or maybe shortly after, we kept hearing it was going to be 5 seasons. You remember that?
Yeah, numerous
times. And they kind of pulled that back, and there was like, well, no, it's really only going to be 2 seasons. And then we thought, well, wait a minute, I'm almost positive you said it was going to be 5. And now it's starting to make sense. They either for production reasons or whatever it is, or they just felt like, hey, we didn't need to draw this thing out for 5 seasons. They're going to kind of do this accelerated 4 years, post this, and 3 episodes apiece, and we'll get whatever we need to get to kind of move the story along. But we're going to have some time jumps, a lot of time jumps in this.
Right. Yeah, Lauren, does that seem too aggressive to you? What do you think about 3 episodes encompassing an entire year times 4? Is that too much? I mean, I think it was important we get 12 episodes for that first year to really establish where everything's at, what's at stake, who are all these people. But even if we know everybody, is that just too much? Like too little for too much?
It sounds like a lot. I will say that I feel like Tony Gilroy has earned my trust and more. So I think it's going to be okay. But it does sound like a lot, especially because I think one of the things that made season 1 of Andor so strong is that they were willing to take their time with the story and really building it up. So that sounds like quite a shift to cover that much time in that few of episodes. But
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. I think it's going to be okay.
I do too. And I think so. And we'll get into a lot of this again a little bit later. I do want to quickly talk about the stage that we saw. There were a lot of, I think all of members, all the people that were released on the main stage were at one point kind of touching base with Anthony Carboni and Kristen Baver and a few others. I think Christina Ariel was another one.
Right.
But the one that we've got up right now, I think we were both genuinely happy and laughing. And if you have not had a chance to go watch this one, I think this one is available. I don't think they pulled it down. Have they yet?
No, this one's there. They actually did a whole day recap. So it's like 5 hours.
Yeah.
Of the whole thing, even with like the Ahsoka trailer and everything baked in. So, and they actually have it timestamped too. So you can go in and look at it. But by far, this was the best interview. That was, like you said, it was just so much fun. We were laughing. We were just having fun with it.
Yeah.
These characters, they just love, I mean, the people love each other and they love the characters and hearing their interpretation. I mean, Anthony Carboni, jacket choices aside,
Right.
pretty. I mean, he's like one of my favorite personalities for Star Wars. Like just for presenting content, he's just so fantastic.
Like I'm not a fashionable person. I usually wear Star Wars T-shirts, but I can clearly see that half of his jacket is missing, and so I question where that went to. But all joking aside, so Kyle Solar, Denise Gao, and Adria Arjona. There we go. And we're all on stage, and they're kind of just reminiscing about what season 1 was like. Some of the intensity stuff. And what was interesting, just a quick thing, I was surprised to find out that scene at the very end of Andor, where they get kind of locked up there after the bomb goes off, and they have that front to face thing, and and it's awkward, and you feel like, oh, are they going to kiss? Are they not going to kiss? That was the very first scene they had ever filmed together, which was surprising. They actually went backwards, so that they filmed that and then went backwards from there, and so. What do they call it? 7 minutes in the heaven, or 7 minutes in the closet, or whatever.
Yeah, 7 minutes in heaven was the joke on set. Was 7 minutes in heaven.
Yeah,
and basically it was like a staring contest. And Denise Goff is just so much fun. She was like, I just stare really good. It's like one of her skills in life. And she's like, I just want to stare and then be able to raise my eyebrow. And
yeah,
it was just so much fun because she actually did it. I can't raise one eyebrow. That's just too much talent for me.
Yeah,
but it was just so much fun.
What gets me about anytime I see any of the actors from Andor doing an interview, it always strikes me how warm these people are in real person compared to how cold they are in Andor. It's just like a testament to their acting.
Yeah.
Well, and Albert was telling me earlier today, he's like, Kyle Solar is just like the sweetest human being on the planet. And yet he plays this really cold and withdrawn and defeated and arrogant, kind of lost person too. But it's just crazy that, someone that they can channel these types of things in, for a character and bring them to life in such a way where you think that's who they are, but it's not who they are.
Right. Well, that's, the telltale sign of a good actor or actress.
Oh, is that acting? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's how it goes, usually.
I get confused about such things.
Right. But no, yeah, and he's such a sweet dude. Like every interview I've ever seen, he's so like grounded. He seems like, he's a family guy, he's got kids. I mean, he's just kind of like doing whatever, but yet he's, now granted, some people may argue that he's eating cereal half the time and being moody, but it's good drama. It makes for good drama.
Right.
I think that was pretty much it. I mean, again, it's still early, so they didn't release a whole lot of stuff. I mean, if you want to just quickly on the panel there, they had everybody else. I mean, the Genevieve O'Reilly was there. Andy Serkis came out at one point. You can kind of see him. We've got it pulled up right now. He came out there, and the chance of, No Way Out started. That is really gonna kill me. No, you're fine. You leave it there. But yeah, so One Way Out, and there was all, and then also like later on, I think who was the costume designer came up on stage at some point and was talking about how wonderful it was to see that. Like normally at Celebration, they would have like the running of World War hoods where they've got the ice cream makers and all that.
Right.
But there was a contingent force of people that were dressed as the prisoners from Andor there at Celebration. And there's a couple videos, if you go out there and look, where they've gotten them all together and they're all chanting, One Way Out. But Andy Serkis had riled up the crowd while this was going on with that as well. So, I mean, they're having a really good time. No confirmation, though, about whether we looked at it. There was a part in there where I thought maybe it was him, that it was Kino Loy, but no confirmation one way or the other. And again, this may be spoilers, maybe it's not. But
the guy slapping his arm.
Yeah, right. That wasn't him. I don't think it was. But
I think it was Diego Luna.
What?
I think it was Diego Luna. It was just a really weird angle.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was. Not either way. No confirmation one way or the other if he was alive or if he was dead. I think people.
That's because he's in the Mandalorian and all of the stuff.
Oh, that's right. He's in the tubes.
Yeah, he's Snoke.
Right, becoming Snoke Loy.
Snoke Loy.
Or whatever. It's a really dumb theory. Okay. All right. Anything else that you want to add, Lauren, or?
Yeah, you're lucky I like you.
Okay. Lauren, anything you'd like to add?
I don't know if I want Kino Loy to come back, but if he does come back, it's just, I don't know. We just left off such a strong way with his character, but if he does come back, I think I won't complain.
Yeah. I don't think anybody would complain, honestly, except me.
So during the trailer, I swear I heard, Kino lived.
No, he did not. Okay, next slide.
No, I'm actually being honest with you. The first time I heard
play it backwards, they're saying Kino lived.
Play it backwards, right? Yeah.
I like where your head's at, Lauren.
Next slide, please. Next slide. All right, let's move on to Acolyte. All right, so first and foremost, we got a logo, a brand new logo, more stylized. They've turned the O into what I want to call a ring. And Lauren, don't get excited because I know you're a Lord of the Rings person. That's not what this means.
I don't know.
And then Jonesy had a good point. There's a part in the trailer where they talked about, what was it, the power? Something about power.
I think it's in the show notes, actually.
Is it in the show notes? Okay, good. But yeah, anyways, and then we started thinking, oh my God, Lauren's going to like lose her whole mind when she hears this because there's now a ring and they're talking about shifting the power and all that.
Yeah, it's, I think the quote was, it's about who can use the power.
Right.
This is about power and who is allowed to use it.
Yes.
So, okay. So we're not getting Lord of the Rings, but what did you guys, either one of you have any kind of thoughts? And I've not really put a lot of time into this. It is interesting that they've changed this into a ring. I don't know the significance, but I would assume that it has some.
I'm going to turn it over to our resident Lord of the Rings expert.
Oh, no, I can't get started with that or it's just going to get ridiculous. But I mean, I like the red and the blue. Like, I think the red and the blue to me, it's making me think light versus dark, good versus evil type of struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the significance either. It is an interesting choice, and I'm sure as we get more footage and understand more about it, that'll all surface. There wasn't anything, again, so this was a official trailer, I guess. Yeah, it was a trailer. I would call it a trailer. It was put together as like a trailer, not released to the public, was released behind closed doors. We've had a chance to watch some of it. Unfortunately, I think most of the video that's been out there and it's been leaked has really kind of been at the 1 minute mark and it just kind of cuts off abruptly.
Yeah, it's really truncated.
Yeah. So we'll kind of speak to some of the things. So, cover your ears if you think this is spoilers or whatever, but we'll kind of speak to a little bit of it. But I think overall, I would say my first impressions were it was pretty exciting to see. Like, it feels like, and this was confirmed, maybe this isn't spoiler because it was confirmed by some of the actors and stuff during the panels and on stage with the crew from the Star Wars Celebration, but there is a heavy influence of martial arts.
Right.
And when I think martial arts in Star Wars, I think Terras Kasi. Maybe they're going to kind of dig into that a little bit more, right? This is the martial arts that was part of the PlayStation 2 or 1 video game at the time.
First
PlayStation. It came up a little bit later. Kira mentions that she was trained in Terras Kasi during Solo, likely passed down from Maul, I think was kind of our speculation or our theory, but it does seem to be front and center. And there were moments of the trailer that felt like, I hate to say it because people are going to use this and weaponize it in some way, but parts of it did feel kind of like the Matrix. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because at the end of the day, we're talking about people that are force sensitive, and how would they integrate their force abilities into like a martial art?
Right.
It makes sense to me. And that, unfortunately, I don't think we can get away from the Matrix style or Matrix look. But overall, I mean, we've got one screenshot here that we pulled up that starts off with a Jedi Master talking about Padawans. Again, for anybody that's unfamiliar where this is going to land, during the era of the High Republic, I think about 100 years before the Phantom Menace at this point. And so, yeah, I mean, this is the beginning of the end for the Jedi for the most part. But I'll turn it over to you. What other thoughts, or I guess what other things stood out for you when you were watching this?
Yeah, and this is why you watch those live interviews on the the main stage or the one out in the galley. Because Amanda Stenberg said that the tone of this is really dark, which we knew, but also it has this magical realism. And I think we'll show you a screenshot here in a minute that it's tough to tell in the screenshot because it's blurry cam and all that good stuff. But you do get this. Yes, it is a little bit Matrix-like. Yes, it's very martial arts inspired, but it also it gets your imagination just kicked into high gear about what is possible when you engage with the dark arts of sorts, right? Right, I'm channeling Harry Potter all of a sudden.
Yeah, right.
But it's this idea of what can you do whenever you really truly engage, and what don't we know that the Sith are up to during this time? I think that's the really interesting part about this. And so, getting it from the villain perspective, getting it from that point of view, and I'll just kind of skip here to the battle. So this is the scene I was talking about. So this looks like maybe Carrie-Anne Moss.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've been able, some articles have seemed to confirm that, but we don't necessarily know that specifically.
It was never given, never specifically said by anybody.
And Rebecca Henderson and her, from a facial features in this really washed out, blurry, look very similar. So I don't know if we're getting any similarities there. But, and then we have this scene here. This is where this creature or this person in black kind of, puffs in and out. I don't even know what the right word. It's like almost like Nightcrawler from the X-Men shows this, like the Bamf of thing, which I think is actually pretty cool. Again, little short bursts during a battle that you think can get you an advantage. I just think that's really cool. I like the idea of bringing things we haven't seen in a very different era where everybody is in shroud of secrecy when it comes to the Sith, and the Jedi are, of course, still maybe coming down from their high. But to have them engage in the first time in a long time, I think is going to have a lot of surprises to it.
Yeah. Lauren, did you get a chance to watch this one? Again, I think this was another one that kind of gets truncated after about a minute, so we don't have the full length trailer, but what did you think about it? To me, it felt very cinematic too, and the way it was put together. It almost didn't feel like, it felt more like Andor in terms of like, the production quality and how it was kind of stitched together versus something like Mando. I hate to say it, that's not a negative, right? It felt a little different to me, but what did you think as you were watching it?
Yeah, what I got excited about in this trailer is I love how it looks like we're going to be getting deeper into like that spiritual lore of kind of how the Jedi are working through that and kind of exploring that a little bit deeper than maybe we have previously, and that makes me excited. And I mean, even though in the trailer we didn't really get very many details about like what exactly the story is, I feel like that was kind of like the impression that we got from some of the lines and like seeing the meditation scenes and things like that. So
yeah.
I'm really looking forward to this one for that reason.
So I got to ask you, because I know I'm going to call you our resident High Republic expert at this point, because you're beyond in terms of what we've covered. But is there anything that you were seeing in here that you're starting to kind of put, and I know it's probably premature because we're only in phase 2, which is set before phase 1. I think in phase 3, we're probably going to get bits and pieces that start to line up with what we're seeing in the Acolyte, right? But is there anything that, as you were watching this, kind of evoked anything that's happened recently in the High Republic, either in phase 1 or phase 2 for you?
Not any specific events, but I will say just like the kind of mood that I got from this, it did feel similar to phase 1 in particular.
Yes.
Just kind of like that very like heightened sort of like grandeur of the Jedi. I feel like I kind of got that sort of feeling just from watching this.
Yeah, it's almost like you can tell the end is coming, right? It's that dark cloud that's starting to loom over the Jedi during this time.
Right. So we're a year out from this, right? Or a year plus out, Lauren. Are we going to get Yoda, yes or no? Is he actually going to show up and stay for more than 5 minutes?
Are you talking about in this show?
Yeah, in Acolyte.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Lauren, let's hear it. What do you got?
What's your prediction? We need to know right now. Your team.
I think yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes. I don't have any sort of basis for saying that. That's really just a gut feeling, but
that's not necessary here. Yeah. We don't need basis for anything.
We won't mention it again if you get it wrong, and if you do, we'll give you all the credit. So that's how it works.
I want to see Yoda at the height of his power being awesome. That's what I would really love.
Well, here's what I would argue as far as a precedence. Like he's been conveniently missing during some of the more important parts during phase 1 and phase 2. However, he's been around and we've seen him. He has come out. So, I mean, they've already kind of set that precedence as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
There's no reason why he wouldn't be in this. I think where I would say it becomes kind of cautionary is he has the Luke Skywalker effect, right? You insert him into this, and then now you got to contend with him. And is there anybody that's going to really be able to contend with him at this point? I don't think so, right? So he may just be a cameo character or kind of quarterbacking stuff, driving stuff in the background. But would he be front and center? No, I don't think so. I think this is really going to be focused. And then we forgot to mention. So if it's not been said or you haven't heard, this is from the perspective of the bad guys, right?
This is from the villain perspective.
Yeah, that keyboard's hit just getting around here. But yeah, so this is a very different take on Star Wars because we've always had the perspective of the good guys. And so seeing it from the other side, the inverse of that is going to be pretty interesting. I got to ask you, so Leslie Heelan is the showrunner front showrunner for this show.
Right.
She said that this was a combination of Kill Bill meets Frozen.
Right. So it's a musical.
Oh, that's what that's what I thought. Yeah. No, seriously, but what did you think about that? What is that? Because I think when I think of Frozen, I think sister story. Because that's what it was about, right? It was about two sisters. It was about family. It's about, we don't need a prince to make us happy at the very end, which I thought was an amazing, honestly, all sincerely. I think I really love that story that they were telling there. But then Kill Bill is just like, wanton violence at any given moment. So how do you like get those two together?
Well, I think it goes back to what we said. I think the idea of Frozen meets Kill Bill is this magical, the magical realm aspect of it with this really dark, gritty, action-packed type of thing. Because some of the actors also discussed about this in the Celebration Live panel, is this idea that it's just action-packed. There's just a lot of action within this.
Yeah. That's true.
They were asked to summarize the episode within a few words or just a word, and one of them was action. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that, and I think that's really great. But like you said, it's from the villain perspective, and so do we need to see this from the Jedi point of view, like with this magical, this frozen kind of way of thinking? Again, it's about exploration of things that we don't necessarily already know. I think that's the interesting part about it. I think that's what makes it fascinating, is because we can learn new things that we think we know, but we really don't. They're going to show us that we have no idea what we think we know at this point.
Yeah. On the comments, just quickly, JR says this would be the perfect place to put Yoda in and get people talking about the new show. And then Miss Sunflower said, Kill Bill. I hope she has a kill list. So someone has definitely seen that movie. Lauren, you were going to say something. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, you're fine. I was just going to say that with the Frozen meets Kill Bill, the way that I interpreted that was perhaps it would be like the storyline would have a very mythological feeling, which I would feel like is kind of like what we would expect from like maybe prequel era Star Wars, that very like larger than life mythos, but with like a strong emphasis on the fighting aspect as well. That was kind of like what I got from that combo.
Yeah.
I like that.
I tend to take things literally. So I was thinking, okay, so there's going to be a sister who's, got powers and then suddenly turns to the dark side. And there's another sister that's trying to pull her over or not let her get over her head. And that becomes the Acolyte. But
didn't we have a video game about that? Wasn't that an expansion for the Old Republic?
Oh,
like with two siblings?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Now you're just channeling video games.
Maybe. Yeah. Unconsciously, subconsciously. Yeah, that's probably true. All right. Never mind.
I like the sister idea too, though. I think that would also be cool.
But it doesn't have to be sisters. I think just family in general is kind of the message. But
I like the idea of sisters, though, because it's just a different spin on it, too. We get a lot of brother, sister, and I guess even brothers, right? We've had brothers in the video game. I think that's specifically what it was, right? The brothers in that game. So I think have sisters would be a different dynamic to it if you wanted to take Frozen more literally in that regard. But yeah. So I think one thing we did get clarification on, of course, we said it just a minute ago, but just to make sure it's transparent, while there was a lot of rumors that Acolyte was 2023, it is actually firmly in 2024. So they're still filming. This really shouldn't be that much of a surprise for us, I think, but they did confirm, I believe at the very end of the preview here, they did flash coming in 2024. So even though we haven't seen that specifically, that's what all the reports are sharing.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have any concerns around that? Like, and I hate to say this, I was talking to somebody a couple days ago, and they made the comment of like, I'm really kind of questioning my Disney Plus subscription because they're not on the Marvel front. It doesn't sound like there's enough there to satisfy them. And now don't get me wrong.
Well, that's coming on the Marvel side, Loki and everything else this year.
Yeah, I think we probably are going to pay for Disney Plus no matter what because we don't want to miss anything or whatever. And we're not probably typical. We're probably atypical in that regard. But when you see 2024 for this one, you see 2024 for Skeleton Crew. And we know we've got
Skeleton Crew?
No, sorry, not Skeleton Crew. Andor. Sorry.
Right.
So really, all we've got then this year is Skeleton Crew and Ahsoka. Right? Is that enough to keep you going for the next better part of 9 months? Lauren, I'll start with you.
For me, yes, because it's more important to me that these stories don't feel rushed. I would much rather these be strong stories, good production value, doing it right, and having to wait a little bit longer rather than churning a bunch of stuff out this year that might feel a little bit half-baked.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I think maybe I'll counter that just to be kind of the other side of the coin here. I think some of it is how many episodes of each do we get? Because I think that's the part that will feel like if it's a short run, let's say 6 or 8 episodes, probably more like 8 is my guess, right? If there are 8 episodes, does 8 feel like enough to fill all that void to where we have these big gaps in between? And not that space in between is a bad thing. I mean, usually we benefit greatly from that because we can catch up and we can we can explore things in more detail, right? The three of us like to get into the weeds. So, but I think if I'm looking at it from a company perspective, a little bit different. But I think there's also other content, maybe not exclusive to Disney Plus, but there is other content coming out for Star Wars at different age levels and things like that as well. They're also doing behind the scenes type of material that we don't see as often. So I think there's other things coming in to help, I won't say fill the gap, but at least give us more content to consume, just like the Obi-Wan Kenobi had it behind the scenes as well. So is it all brand new content? Maybe not. But I have a feeling there might be something in here too. I don't think we're going to have a huge, well, it kind of seems like we'll have a few month break here because we know we're not going to get Ahsoka until later this summer.
Yeah.
So we know we're going to have about a 3-month break here. So what are we going to do to fill that? So I'm curious to see what Lucasfilm's plan is to keep that engine firing. But also, I think this isn't a bad thing. When Marvel was doing this over and over and over, show after show after show, people were getting burned out and they were starting to not tune in.
Yeah, I know.
To some of
You
it.
can't win for, losing, but
And that's why we were so surprised when they were going to do Bad Batch and Mandalorian on top of each other. Like, why? I mean, why? If we have this gap already with this and Ahsoka, are we concerned about something with that, or conflicting, or if maybe there were slippages in time? So it is curious how those decisions are getting made, even if it is an animated series versus, am I using finger quote? It is an animated series. If it's an animated series versus a live action show, but
yeah.
Anyway, what about you?
Well, I don't. I like that. I mean, I'm going to keep my subscription either way.
Right.
And to Lauren's point, if it takes a year before this is out, and they're going to give me better quality and give me stuff that I like, then so be it. I'll wait. Right. And so far, I don't have any reason to think that neither one of these look like top quality. The Ahsoka stuff, I can't wait to talk about. We're going to have a whole show on that tomorrow morning, or I think at 10 a.m. Central. Yeah. So we'll break down the trailer to the nth degree, frame by frame, and speculate on all kinds of stuff. And we're going to talk about just a little bit here tonight. But yeah, I mean, I'm willing to bet that that's going to be a successful show. This seems more promising than I thought. And some of that is because we haven't really got anything at all, right? But then finally getting to see this trailer, and even with the low res, crappy quality that you've seen our images with here, it was exciting. I mean, there's just something about the tone of the series that is already starting to feel very different. I said cinematic earlier. I don't know if that's the right word, but it does feel very similar to me. Like when I saw Andor for the first time, it feels Star Wars, but it feels separate. Like it's on another level. I hate to, and I'm not, minimizing anything like Mando or any other shows that have come out before, but it just feels like this is going to be special in some way. So
does it seem to you guys like when we see Jedi on screen, it just feels like it perks up. Like you just stand a little bit taller. It feels a little more cinematic in that regard compared to maybe the grittier feel of a Mandalorian or even Skeleton Crew or something. I think Skeleton Crew might feel more like Mandalorian, and this might feel more like movies.
Definitely. I feel like there's just a little bit of a different feeling depending on what characters we have on screen. So yeah, when it's Jedi on screen, I definitely have a little bit of I look at it with a different eye than I would look at something like Mandalorian. And part of that is just like my personal, I mean, the Jedi are my favorite. That's my favorite type of Star Wars story, is Jedi-centric stories. So it doesn't take much to impress me with a Jedi story because I already love it.
I'm with you there. And that's why I keep trying to I try to make everybody Force sensitive. I try to work Jedi into just about everything. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of a one-trick pony in that regard. But I mean, it's nice that we have Andor to kind of balance things out in a lot of different ways, more than just whether or not there's Jedi in there. I don't think there's going to be a Jedi in season 2. But yeah, I mean, anytime we can get Force sensitives involved, that's just kind of a staple for me, right? It's a staple of Star Wars. So you kind of want it and expect it, but it doesn't always have to be there.
Yeah. And then before we move on with the title card, I like the new style. It actually feels more High Republic to me.
That's a good point.
Than the other one, but I like the other one better, if that makes sense.
You just like it better because it's easy. Well, no, I was going to say it's easier for graphics, but neither one's nice.
No, they've both sucked.
They both suck at graphics. Okay.
Yeah, they've both been difficult to manipulate. But the other one had a lot more, like it felt more Sith-like and evil and just menacing, right? It just had a different feel to it.
Sure. Hey, before we move on, and I'll let you kind of, there is a confirmation of sorts that in the Acolyte, for a couple things, actually, let me back up. So we're going to get a lot of practical effects, hand-painted backdrops were mentioned, a lot of on-location filming. It does feel like we're getting away from the volume use, as maybe to, it's not going to be near what we saw with Kenobi or maybe season 2 of Mandalorian. And all this is natural, right? We're getting away from COVID, production values. We don't know how much is being pumped into this, but all this speaks to, again, that cinematic quality that I think that we saw with Andor. But whenever we get on-screen locations, as incredible and as amazing as far as the volume has come alone in the last 2 years, there's something to be said about filming on location. So all that's good stuff. Again, that's probably given it that cinematic feel. But I did want to mention there was a confirmation of sorts that we are going to get a Wookiee Jedi Master in the series. And unfortunately, it's not Boryaga.
I was
But
just about to say his name is Buryaga.
no, it's not Buryaga. I would and at first they didn't. When they first announced it, they said there was going to be. Well, they brought in what's his name? Jonas, right? My name is Jonas. They brought in Jonas on stage. Everybody freaked out because he's it's famous for playing Wookiees. But then the first thing, I mean, you can't help but think Buryaga, which would then confirm that he lives in phase 2 or phase 1. Sorry, spoiler alert. But it turns out that's not the case. And so this is just another Wookiee Jedi Master, but nonetheless seems pretty exciting.
So he's dead. That's what you just said.
No.
All right. You're going to have to fight Lorna with that one. So
if he's dead, I don't know. I don't know if I can take it. So he better not be dead.
It is super exciting to have Jonas back in the Wookiee costume of sorts.
Yeah.
Because I think that is a lot of fun. He is such a great guy. It has so much passion and energy for Star Wars, and again, it continues that legacy for the Mayhew family and Peter Mayhew specifically. So I just love that we're getting him in a show, and hopefully have a chance to shine for more than just a few scenes as well. And I know that we had Solo, and he was fantastic in that too. But I think this is really cool for him to be a part of this longer term.
Yeah, and there is an interview I think on the Star Wars Celebration stage with him and. Who was the other person that was out there with him? Do you remember?
I can't remember, actually.
Yeah, but that's out there available as well if you want to go kind of get more details on the character that he's going to play. So anything else? Did I miss anything here? Again, still, I mean, there's a number of people in here, and maybe we'll kind of expand upon this later on, either in a separate show or maybe in the Day 4 recap. But a lot of these characters were giving, unofficially and officially, have come out and said, I'm playing a Jedi Master, or I'm playing a Jedi Padawan. So we'll get into some of that later, but it does feel like there's a lot of Jedi and a lot of bad guys, and can't wait to see more.
And super huge props to Amandla Stenberg, because she came out dressed as Padme Amidala.
Oh, yeah, yes. That's right.
Oh, I loved that. Made me so I mean, I'm not really super familiar with her, but when I saw that, I was just 100% on board. I was like, she's a fan. She's one of us. Like, I just loved it.
Yes. Yeah.
And they all they do is talk about the showrunner, Leslie Headland, just how much of a super fan she is. So it feels like we're in pretty good hands here.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to Skeleton Crew, which Skeleton Crew, a lot of it at the beginning, at least in the panel, was kind of talking about how it came to be, and we'd already heard this, I think, from the last celebration, honestly. So it wasn't really anything new. Maybe it was new for a lot of folks in terms of the origins and how this kind of came to be, but they did announce the directors, which we've got pulled up on the screen right now. So John Watts, David Lowery, the Daniels, if you're familiar with them. That's not what they look like. That's a Photoshop picture that they used.
I had to ask because I was not familiar with this.
Yeah, it's not like the director is, a 6-year-old on top of dad's shoulders there. Jake Schreier, I'm not familiar with him. Bryce Dallas Howard, I think it's a name we're all very familiar with.
Yeah, sounds familiar. She sounds like she might know what she's doing.
Yep. And then Lee Isaac Chung have all been tapped as directors for this. How
does that make you feel? Like, again, different directors for a TV series within the same season. How does that make you feel seeing more of this happening?
So again, I think we've talked about this before, and I know it probably gives people the heebie-jeebies given what we saw with the sequel trilogy. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is a very traditional approach to storytelling in television, right? In that medium, you get this. What you expect with this is that, okay, you can tap 6 directors all to do, 8 episodes or whatever the series is going to be. But as long as you have a beginning and an end, you have the writers all kind of consistently telling the same story and kind of mapping this out so that you know where this is going. You could have a director for every one of these episodes, right? And as long as they kind of stay close in terms of style so they don't get too far out there, I think it works. So I don't really have any major concerns. And honestly, I don't, with the exception of Bryce Dallas Howard, I'd have to go look and see, what these other guys have done to kind of understand, like, what are we going to get a kind of specific tone? Is there a specific artistic style that they use? Maybe that kind of dictates one way or the other. But yeah, no real big concerns. Quickly, this series was, so we got Jude Law. He came out on stage for the first time. Got a very Tom Selleck 80s
stash,
macho stash going on. That's so right. Confirmed also on the panel that he's going to play a Jedi. So again, we're getting more Force sensitive people in Star Wars. I think this makes sense. This brings up a lot of questions, though, because if we're in the Mandalorian era, this is yet another Jedi, or at least a Padawan, that got away from Order 66, because he's a Jedi Master. They're not saying he's a Padawan, or he's not like Kanan Jarrus, who felt like he was a Padawan, but he was never really worthy of being called a master because he never went through the trials and all that, even though Ahsoka kind of gave him the name and, you know, technicality kind of thing. But what are your thoughts, I guess, on
it's confusing.
Jude?
I got to be honest, it's a little bit confusing. I'm not worried. It's just confusing. It feels like we're shoehorning a lot of Jedi into this period of time. And maybe I say a lot. It's probably not a lot. It's just a few. But at the same time, we were under the impression that after Luke, the list was extremely short. And to call someone a Jedi Master, I think is what it doesn't send up red flags. It's just more of like questions like, okay, where is this stuff coming from? Where have these people been hiding out? And we were trying to figure out in the car today, we were trying to figure out what age is he, to try to figure out, like, we're trying to work backwards here. So if he's a roughly, let's just call him 50 years old, like 50 standard years old, you know, and trying to work back, you know, yeah, it's not bad, right?
Not bad.
I heard you're just hitting your second life at that point.
Something like
stride,
that.
whatever it is.
Sure.
But, you know, if we're trying to work back from that, then he was probably Padawan type of age, right? You know, something in there, maybe not youngling, maybe that youngling to Padawan stage, because that is in your teenage years as well, I suppose. So, yeah, where was he exactly? How did he get out? Are we going to get more of those scenes like we did for Grogu of Order 66? Are we going to get more context with some of those? So on one side, it's like, okay, where are these people? And then you're like, no, I'm okay with that. Like, give me some more of that prequel love, right? It's probably speaking to Lauren a little bit too, of like, okay, how did Kelleran Beck get him out?
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing.
So, Lauren, I want to go to you because this is another one that I think you had a chance to watch a trailer. And specifically, I want to ask, this series was touted as kind of like the Goonies meets Star Wars, or, you know, this coming of age tale of a bunch of kids in the vein of, you know, E.T., Stranger Things has kind of been thrown out there, right? We've got a Jedi Master who somehow comes into contact with these four kids and they go on this crazy adventure, right? This galaxy-wide adventure, which I don't think they've ever officially said, but I think we would expect this to kind of have some kind of an impact either in the Filoni television universe, or, as we'll talk a little bit later, maybe they play a part in some of this larger scale kind of movie that we're all maybe moving towards here at the very end. But did you pick up on that kind of 80s nostalgia tone? Because they did show some scenes and we got to see the kids, and you can kind of put two and two together about what's happening here. Jonesy's got a nice image up that we're showing right now with Jude Law and the kids all around him. But how did you feel? Did anything get conjured up as you were watching the trailer there?
Yeah, I think the shots of the kids and some of the lines that they were saying, it definitely gave me that feeling just kind of initially. I would want to see if the story keeps that feeling throughout. But just based on the trailer alone, I definitely feel like it was coming across. And the comparison to E.T., like that vibe definitely spoke to me because that's, that's a great movie. So anything that's going to have that feel, I'm definitely on board with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we definitely got a little vein from Mandalorian.
I didn't get vein. Oh, you're talking about the character vein.
Yes, the character vein. So,
okay, yeah.
So,
and that was...
Yeah, we talked about pirates.
And
so pirates are here. We have confirmation.
Yeah.
So it wasn't Gorian Shard necessarily, but it was...
Oh, is this close? I said it was going to be Gorian Shard, and then he died in that last episode like a chump. Or no, maybe not. He went down heroically, however you want to look at it. But yeah, I guess it was... I think we did talk about maybe it's Vane then at this point that he, takes over. But right. He does seem to be kind of like the... I'm going to call him the antagonist for now because I didn't see anybody else, but I could be wrong. But he's definitely in this. So if you're not talking... He's the... what is it? Let's race. Licto or... Nicto.
Yeah.
I'll say Licto. Wow, that sounds terrible. The Nicto that's named Vane that was seen in season 3 of The Mandalorian. So he popped up in this trailer and looks to be the antagonist. So
right, and again, I think Goonies is a great vibe for this because again, the kids seem like at first I thought they were lost or something, but it seems like they almost run away. So when we'll do a full breakdown of this trailer once we've had a chance to hopefully digest the entire thing, rather than just 40 or 50 seconds of it, of a really truncated, blurry vision and not a lot to it. So hopefully we get some of this content more officially so that we can give a really good deep dive on some of this. But it was a little bit different vibe than what I was expecting, though. I thought it was going to be, these kids were lost and they were found and they need to be, go back to their parents or whatever, and they just keep coming across challenges. And it has a lot of that still, but a little bit of different flair than what I expected.
It's got a feeling like they're on a mission, like maybe they have a little bit more agency than just them being lost type of thing.
I'm wondering if and I think even if it doesn't start that way, I think you're right, Lauren. I think it will eventually get there, right? They'll find something they need to go and make a difference on that's important, that is of galactic importance. Galactic import, I believe.
Yeah, and I'm excited. this, and again, this is coming from Dave Filoni and specifically Jon Favreau. So definitely going to fit right into that Filoni verse, the Favreau verse, whatever you want to call it, and certainly going to work its way up, I'm assuming, to the movie or some big event that we get here in just a few years. Again, this was not something they covered a lot. There wasn't a lot of details. Did they even tell us like when this thing was going to be coming out? Did they announce that?
I kept looking to see if it was confirmed for 2023. We presume it is.
I keep saying it is. I can't imagine them not at this point. But
I think if we would have seen, if it would have been 2024, I think we would have heard it was pushed to 2024. Lauren, did you hear any like specifics on that one?
I did not know. I'm thinking 2023 just because it sounds like the level of chatter has made me think that, but that's not based on anything confirmed.
It seemed like it was on that same cadence as Ahsoka. I think is why we're probably equating it to that. It had it got started sooner and before Acolyte did.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that's why there's hope for this to be maybe. So if Ahsoka is in late August, I think is what they said that one's going to be. Is this going to be the winter release?
Yeah.
Which I think to me makes a lot of sense, right? Can we slip this in at the end of the year like we did with Book of Boba Fett?
Yep. Yeah, we'll see. Again, until they say different, I think it's slotted for 2023, and it felt like the trailer too. So again, just quickly, this was yet another, the third one that they showed a trailer behind closed doors. It's not been publicly out there. I think if you search for all three of these, you can probably find them. They're still kind of hidden for the most part. I think in this one we got almost the full trailer though, and it did feel like this trailer was more formal, I would say, than like certainly more than the Andor stuff. That was just kind of a series of shots streamed together. Acolyte felt like it was, maybe the first couple of episodes and they threw something together for this purpose. What we saw may be the actual trailer that we get when they do a final official release of it. So that would be a good sign, I think, in my head at least, to say, okay, they're further along in production than we're maybe worrying about. And so that, it does line up for a late fall, winter kind of release.
It really did feel like it was very close to teaser level, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as polished as what we had with Ahsoka, with the well-rounded approach, but I think pretty close to that. And I was really surprised that Acolyte had as much there, and they had finished some of the effects for that. Now, granted, that was probably a very narrow scope, and that was more sizzle, type of teaser in that regard, but I was pleasantly surprised where that was at too.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's move on. I think, was that all that we had in there? Do you guys have anything else that you want to talk about Skeleton Crew for now, at least?
Oh, yeah, we're definitely excited to come back and revisit this one soon, though.
Lauren, how about you? Anything else?
I'm looking forward to seeing the non-blurry version.
Okay.
Non-blurry, non-washed out.
Legal version. Let's throw that in there as well.
Well, not entirely illegal version.
Yeah, not entirely illegal, right? So, okay, so let's move on to The Mandalorian. And
I had to start with this image because it just cracked me up so much.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So we've got a picture up right now. We've got Christina Ariel there. We've got Carl Weathers, Emily Swallow, and Giancarlo Esposito, who's on. And they were part of the celebration. They came out and did an interview thing. And the armor, she was freaking out. Emily Swallow was freaking out because the center part of it, for anybody that's watching, was the forge, right? And so she didn't even realize it until a few minutes into the trailer, or the interview, and she kind of freaked out, and they threw the big plume of smoke up, and everybody got surprised. So another really good interview. Carl Weathers, again, seems to be a champion of Star Wars in general. Now, granted, it's probably coming from a very self-centered place because he loves himself, and I think we all love Carl Weathers because he loves himself. I think he gets a free pass a lot of times.
He was able to make fun of himself knowing how much he loves all of the attention.
He's very self-aware of how much he loves himself, which I think is very sweet. But again, another really fun interview to kind of watch them. And then Giancarlo was out there, really doing the pep rally for anybody that loves Gideon and how awesome he's going to be. And we probably won't get into some of the spoilers here on this show, but really, this was kind of bringing everybody out. There was a lot of recap in terms of how season 2 went, or how I guess season 3 has gone so far. Sorry.
Right.
Talking about, reminiscing about all this stuff. There was a moment in there where they did talk about Ahmad Best and his cameo appearance, and how it just kind of made sense that he was the Jedi Master that was in charge of the younglings, and why who else would be the perfect choice to rescue Grogu. So that got a big round of applause from a lot of folks there. And they did talk about that in on the panel, they showed the first like 7 minutes, I want to say.
Yeah, they did everything up to when they do the title, for the show. So
Yeah.
what do they call that? The teaser part of the episode?
Yeah.
Like a prologue almost. Right?
Prologue, prelude, the preamble, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And then they cut, and that got everybody excited. All of that has been kind of released either in text or there's footage out there now.
Is there? I haven't seen that.
Well, I'll show you in a second. And on top of that, they went through and said, and this is very similar to what they did with Kenobi 2 years ago with during Celebration. Everybody that was in attendance for this panel was going to get a free wristband pass, and they could come back later tonight, which has already happened, right? We're 6 hours ahead of London time, but they were able to go back and watch the full episode 23. That doesn't come out for us until Wednesday of next week.
Yeah, but they were sworn to secrecy, so we probably won't see any of the details.
No, I got all the details already.
No.
It was a joke, Albert.
Oh, okay, no, I'll say I got them all. But
Wait
it does
until
sound.
I leave before you say anything.
Well, we're not going to spoil it because Jonesy. I had it in the show notes, and Jonesy kept me in check. He's like, "We don't do spoilers." I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this with somebody.
We don't do spoilers to that level. Yeah.
Yeah, call me if you want, and I'll kind of fill you in on what's going on. But
I'm a stickler for no spoilers. I would have shut you down.
yeah, all right. So here's what I'll say that's non-spoiler. And this was what Katie Sackhoff had said. We've got a good picture here now of Katie Sackhoff and Rick Famuyiwa. Sure. But Katie Sackhoff had mentioned that she was surprised that there's only 2 episodes left.
Yeah.
And she's like, where's all the footage? Like,
so
she's like,
much.
there's so much that I know we shot that hasn't been shown. And Rick kind of confirmed that these last 2 episodes are going to be very dense. Maybe not, I don't know about in length, right? But in terms of content, we're going to get a lot. And all I'll say about chapter 23 is it's a longer episode, and there's a lot that happens. And there's some really good stuff that finally comes up from season 2 of The Mandalorian that we've not really thought about. We've talked about it on the show. If you follow our show or watch us, listen to us, then, we keep bringing it up, asking, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? We get some confirmation there, but there's some really good moments. There's some really good stuff that I think is going to set the stage, and something at the very end that I was not expecting. So, and I'll just leave it at that to kind of tease people, but good stuff.
Yeah, I'm really excited about what you showed me already, and you had sent me some sneak peeks, even though I didn't ask for it. But I'm here for it, so I don't complain. But no, you're right. We're finally getting some of the meat from season 2, and that resolution, right, of some of these things. And of course, Giancarlo, it's not a secret, and this isn't really a spoiler, that we're going to get Moff Gideon.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that.
And we're going to get Moff Gideon, and apparently, yes, Moff Gideon type stuff. Like, we are going to get the stuff that we have been expecting and wanting all season. And so I'm curious to feel how that buildup has been, since he's been a bit of a, mentioned here and there type of character, but not really had that front and center. So I'm curious how big and bold this is going to feel when he's finally on screen. But yeah, this is really cool that we're finally getting it. These seem like a really intense couple of episodes. Just hang on to your seats. You don't know. Yeah, you've seen nothing yet. And so I'm really excited to see these come to light. I think the other thing that's been really cool is like Rick Famuyiwa talked a little bit about, and this is why this interview was really interesting. And not only they, with Katie Sackhoff and talking more about her and just how funny she is too, but like just the responsibility he's taken over for this series and becoming executive producer and having more at stake within Star Wars. I think that's just really cool. It's a great opportunity for him. It's a great growth story for him. And also it's setting the stage for him to be, like we talked at the beginning of the show, one of these people who is the staple, with Filoni and Favreau and a few others that really become our core Star Wars producers, creators, visionaries for the future. And so I think that's really cool that we feel like we are getting a stable of consistent. This is what Kathleen Kennedy talked about all those months ago, right? We want people who are in for the long haul.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's really cool to be able to see, and when you take a step back, just realize these things are taking shape. But anyway, I kind of got a little off topic there, Lauren, but what are your thoughts so far on what we've seen or what we've heard from Mandalorian? You're staying spoiler free though, huh?
Yes, I'm spoiler free. I just love to have that moment where I'm like totally fresh watching it for the first time, feeling all the emotions. So I do try to stay away from the spoilers, but I'm a little bit dreading. I mean, I know Moff Gideon's going to come. I'm a little bit dreading it because he terrifies me. And if he takes Grogu, I don't know what I'll do. So so I'm nervous, but I'm excited too.
I'm really excited to understand Moff Gideon and the Mandalorians. Like, what is the deal here? Is he obsessed with them? Does he hate them?
I can tell you.
No,
I know you can
Albert.
tell me, Albert.
So here,
But I mean, that's the resolution we're looking
Yeah,
for.
no,
right?
you're
That's
right.
the
You're right.
excitement
I'm
part
kidding.
we're looking for.
Yeah.
So if I told you guys, I was looking behind me. So anybody that's watching the live feed, I just turned around and looked at the stuff that's back here on this wall, right? And I've got books and all kinds of other stuff here. There is something up here that is a spoiler.
Okay, well, I'm gonna squint.
Okay, so squint. That's all I'll say. But here's the other thing I want to say. So Lauren, so seriously, we've not had you on. We're now 2 episodes away from the finale. What do you? How's this season been going for season 3? How's season 3 been going for you? I know the baby in the bubble is super important to you as well. But is there anything that you feel like you were hoping to get resolved and discussed in season 3 that hasn't happened yet? And I'll confirm whether or not you'll get it. No, I'm kidding. Is there anything that you're looking still forward to that they've not touched on with only 2 episodes left?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that, and this is something that I have heard, a common critique of this season, which I think is fair to a certain extent, but I would like to kind of get a better understanding of what is the overall goal for this season and the overall goal going forward. I know it's to get to Mandalore and I mean, now Bo-Katan has made the next step in that, but I'm kind of still a little bit feeling uncertain about what are we headed towards. Like with season 2, we had a very strong feeling of what we're headed towards. We're headed towards the Jedi has to get Grogu. It was something very specific.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it doesn't feel super specific, but I think there's still time for us to get there. So like, I'm open to seeing where that goes, but that's kind of like my main thing that I would like to understand going forward.
Yeah. Yep. Anything that you've still got on your plate? I know you, just while we're on the topic.
Oh man, I mean, nothing major, I guess, at this point, right? It's more about getting the things that we have had. To Lauren's point, I think we've had small parts here and there, and they've been maybe not fragmented, but they're steering us in a direction, but it hasn't always been totally clear and crisp. And I think you had mentioned it maybe a week or 2 ago. It kind of felt like, okay, here's the direction we finally have. And then we take a little bit of a side quest too, maybe not side quest, but we have a different, something else going on.
Yeah.
All of a sudden. And so we look at that. So let's get serious though. Let's focus on the core story right away, right now. And let's go all in on that and let's finish the season strong. I mean, we don't have time to really dilly or dally at this point. And I think when we looked at Bad Batch, we kind of thought that too. And Bad Batch took its time in getting where it needed to go, but it had a really great payoff. So I'm really hopeful that, from everything that we're hearing and the energy we've had from the second to last episode, that it's already been, people talking about it and sharing the details. I mean, it sounds like we're going to get what we want. So patience is a virtue for some of us.
I think y'all are muted. Wait, sorry, that was me. I tried to unmute you for you.
Oh,
and then I accidentally muted you.
Yeah, we were fighting back and forth. So thank you for doing that.
Live television, that's funny.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a cough and it just wasn't going to work. So, okay, so let's move to Ahsoka. Now, I want to preface this by saying, again, as a reminder, tomorrow we have a show at 10 a.m. Central. So we're going to do another show, 10 a.m. Central tomorrow. We're going to break down the Ahsoka trailer to the nth degree, right? Almost a frame by frame.
That's usually how we roll.
Yeah. But we're going to try to break this all down and certainly wax a lot of speculation.
We keep
and theory.
saying we're not going to do that anymore. And then we're like, nah.
No, you keep saying that. And I keep saying, no, let's keep doing it because this is, I like doing that.
But at one point you told me, I was like, we really shouldn't do this like frame by frame.
Okay. Maybe frame by frame is probably a little too much.
Like every other frame.
Every other frame. There you go. Every third frame. How about that?
Stop encouraging him, Lauren.
Yeah.
That's compromise.
So we do want to keep this pretty high level in terms of what we're going to talk about tonight for Ahsoka. I will say that I don't even know how to I haven't even processed this trailer, right? On a number of different levels. As a huge Rebels fan, seeing this stuff come to life was just eye candy, right? And I got a lot of questions. I mean, we even got Ezra, his tiny little Ezra.
Yeah.
Oh no, y'all are muted again.
There we go.
Okay.
Hi. I don't. There must be a fourth person in here somewhere. I don't know what's going on.
Lauren's muting us because
That
Yeah,
time
she's doing it
I
on
was like-
purpose.
That time I was like, I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to let them do it.
Mhm. But yeah, so we've got a lot to discuss tomorrow. But again, I really thought this was. We got the poster that we've got pulled up here. This is one of the posters that was given out today for anybody that went to the panel.
I kept looking in her eyes to see if there was
Reflections.
certain little
Staring
things in
deeply.
Yeah.
there very deeply.
Yeah.
I'm not a creeper, Lauren.
But I guess the big takeaways are we got a full length trailer. This has been released on StarWars.com. So if you've not had a chance to go out there and watch the trailer, you need to do so. It's gonna. I mean, again, I'm having a hard time even just talking about it because there's so much in this. But seeing these characters brought to life, we've got our first confirmation that Mary Elizabeth Winstead is going to be playing Hera. Seeing her live action debut, we got Natasha Bordizzo for the first time in full length, longer hair.
Oh yeah,
an older Sabine now. And one of the things that came out, I don't know if it was in the panel or maybe it was an interview later, but there seems to be some kind of, I'm not going to call it contention, but Sabine and Ahsoka are not really kind of like, they haven't been hanging out.
well, it's tough to tell because Ahsoka gets moody, or maybe not moody, but she gets very serious business too, right? But it does seem like maybe they weren't on the outs, but they got tired of each other. Maybe that's all it was. They spent a lot of time talking, a little time going out there and hunting, and maybe they just decided to come and do something different. So it is interesting though. There's something between them that doesn't feel comfortable, and so I'm curious and I'm excited to see what that's going to be.
Do you think it could be the fact that they both, at least at the end of Rebels, they both agree that the mission was to go find Ezra.
Right.
And I can see a situation where Sabine is like, we have to go do it. This is our mission. And Ahsoka may be thinking larger picture here, thinking, okay,
Thrawn.
Yes, Thrawn, other threats to the galaxy. I have a bigger responsibility. And yes, I am going to find Ezra, but it isn't maybe the first one. And for her, that's how I'm reading it. Is kind of like, hey, why are you now showing up? Where have you been? I've been doing this whole search on myself. You haven't been here. And this isn't gleaning anything from the trailer. I don't think they gave us anything to kind of point in that direction. But I'm just trying to think like, what the only thing that could drive a wedge between them. And again, I don't want to be dramatic here, but something that certainly would feel like
This is
pulling apart.
This is how friends argue, right? They have a difference of opinion about what the strategy and what the path forward should be. And whenever you start to stray because of what you find or what you come across, I think that's going to be the compelling part of this is what did they come across that brought them apart from that mission?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, no, I was just going to jump in and I was just wanting to add on to what y'all were saying was I also felt like part of it too might be based on where we saw Ahsoka in Mandalorian. I felt like she might be at a point where she's kind of more used to working alone. So even if they didn't disagree a ton, Ahsoka almost seemed kind of like a loner to me when we've seen her in recent live action.
Yeah. She does have a kind of I will say that, like she does seem, and I think we've always kind of chalked it up to the fact that, the Empire won and things weren't going so well and now we're in a better situation, but she does seem a little more melancholy than she typically was even in the Clone Wars. And I know the last couple seasons were a little bit darker and crap was happening, but yeah.
Yeah, and I've got a picture in here, actually, right here. This might be the one. Oh, I'm sorry. Who is she looking at?
I don't know who that is. Oh, that's Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, it's Jabba the Hutt.
Right.
Confirmed. No, you're right, though.
That's a reference, by the way. It's not us being funny.
She does seem like Sabine does seem a little bit more melancholy is like a great example or a great word because I think she's just subdued. The normal energy and the passion and the spark, while not gone, it seems to be a little bit dim, right, from where it used to be. And so maybe she's lost a little bit of hope with the Ezra and not sure what to do next. And maybe they've had just a difficult time finding where he might be. Or maybe they did and different choices were made. That will remain to be seen here. But I like that we're getting a little bit of that different angle. And you know what? Not everybody stays together forever, right?
Mm-hmm. Ain't that the truth? Okay, so let's talk about
I really like this shot of Lothaldo. Can we just talk about that for a second?
Yeah, and this is, there's a couple things that have been, I guess, added or enhanced, I would say, but this is definitely on Lothal. This could be the very end of the season, right? They reshot a lot of the footage, so it could be a recreation of some of the stuff that we saw in the animated, or it could be all new. Who knows at this point? But that certainly is a Jedi Council ship, so assuming that's Ahsoka in there. She's got 2 X-Wings that are maybe her escorts. I don't know like who those possibly could be, but that is definitely the same tower. I'm going to just put some money on it. That is definitely the same tower that we see Rebels open with in episode 1 and close with in the final episode of season 4.
Right. And I didn't take the screenshot, but the next frame of this or the next change in the scenery is definitely the view that we see Ezra looking out from,
and Sabine
from the tower, and Sabine as well. Right. Yeah. So, and I think she's actually the one on the balcony this time. But yeah, it's very much, this is definitely Lothal. I mean, the landscape looks wonderful, I think, here, but it was really cool to see X-Wings in this picture. This was something I was not anticipating would be Ahsoka's continued involvement with the Republic, or the New Republic at this stage. Well, I guess confirmed to be the New Republic now, right?
Yeah, confirmed to be New Republic.
Right. So, I mean, so that's interesting to be able to do that, but I like going back to Lothal, and maybe this is just where, you know, Sabine is collecting herself and maybe a bit somber in her own thing, but we'll speculate more on that tomorrow as we go through kind of shot by shot. But I like that we're bringing Lothal back into it. It's such a part of Rebels. It's so cool to be able to go back and revisit this in live action.
Yep. Okay, so Laura, I'm going to put you on the spot now. I think I've heard you mention that you were going to start, I guess, diving into some of the Thrawn stuff in the background or what's going on there. But yeah, I mean, we got the Bantha in the room, right? The hard confirmation that Thrawn is definitely involved. We've got the picture up right now, and this is all we see of him, right? We see him walking away. I guess he's blue. You can see the blue tint there on his skin or whatever, but he definitely seems to be a part of this. So I guess aside from this, what else stood out to you, for just really quite quickly, high level, what stood out for you in the trailer? And again, we'll talk more about it tomorrow.
Well, Thrawn is, I mean, even just from that one shot, very ominous, very threatening. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that character is going to be in live action. The other thing another major thing that stood out in the trailer is the adorable cat.
The Loth cat?
Yes.
Yeah.
But no, the overall, I mean, I feel like every time I watched this trailer, I was getting more and more excited. I loved all the lightsabers. I loved the fighting shots that we got. I just think it's going to be really cool. So that's my high level impressions.
And it's really cool that Morgan Lisbeth's character is also in the same kind of framing of the shot as Thrawn is too. So is that the same time? Is it the same bridge? I mean, clearly it looks like the same bridge. So there's a lot of questions here about when is this taking place too? Is this a flashback, or is this current, or is this looking forward? What? So really exciting though. And
you threw up some other images here, and I'll just kind of talk you through them. We've got this shot here of Mon Mothma. We've got
and actually a resistance.
Kaz.
Kaz's dad is there.
Yeah, and that was confirmed officially. I know some people. I think this image was released by Lucasfilm, and it had some like information about it, and they kind of name dropped him in there. But now it since then has been confirmed that this is Kaz's father, who we knew was a senator of some sort at some point during the New Republic. So good to see that Mon Mothma is still alive. We've been talking about that recently about where is Mon Mothma on all this, and I think we have some open questions that maybe we'll talk about tomorrow about. Where is she with the New Republic? Because I think we would all agree here, and I would hope most people would agree out there, that I don't think she would really stand for some of the crap that's going on in the New Republic, if I'm just being honest. So it is going to be interesting to see where her allegiance lies and kind of what her role is at this point in the government.
Yeah, it's really exciting to be able to see this character come back to life. And again, see her in a different stage, knowing where she's been and where she's going. So yeah, this is really exciting here. And
then on top of all that, the other two standout things, and literally two standout things, was we've got what looked to be Inquisitors.
Yeah, I mean, they've been called Sith-like type characters, although there's some unique aspects to it, but 3 of them.
Oh, was there a third? Oh, yeah, no, there was a third. I saw. Yep, you're right.
So we got one on screen here, which is a young woman with blonde hair, and she comes in storming into the bridge as well. And of course, I believe Alex is in the chat asking about Ray Stevenson.
Yeah, this is him right here, buddy.
So this is Ray Stevenson. So of course, he was the voice of Gar Saxon.
Who?
He's dead, so you don't have to really worry about him that hard.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, we talk about the lightsaber, and the lightsaber are very peculiar here. Usually, lightsabers have a nice white core to them on some level, and so that we're getting this reddish orange is very interesting. Of course, what's mostly interesting about the scene is all of the background stuff. So we'll
save it.
We'll dig into some of that stuff here in the coming time here. I also have this one. Looks like the purest form of the Inquisitor, right?
Yeah.
But again, same type of blade. It could be the woman as well, so it could just be 2, right?
Sure.
But again, there's another close up of the blade right up front. So this really does seem like a classic Inquisitor here. So it's possible that all of these are Inquisitor characters at this point.
Yeah. And there's no reason to believe that the Inquisitors are, we don't know how many there were. There's been a lot of speculation around that. Right. These guys could be remnants. They could be wannabes. Miss Sunshine's asking, are those orange blades? And I would say yes, right? I hate to say the simple answer, but the most obvious answer is they are orange. But I know why you're asking, because we've been talking about it too. We're used to seeing the blades look a little bit different. I think tomorrow we'll kind of speculate on maybe a couple of theories as to why they look different. I will say this, because the blades are consistent, it does feel like it is purposeful. That there is a reason why these are orange and not like the red that we're normally used to seeing. So more on that, I guess, later. Anything else that you got in here?
We got a little bit better picture of Hera. Of course, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who is Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor's partner, of course.
Yeah.
So good shot of her there. Got a few others here.
Is that Barriss Offee?
Barriss Offee.
Well, hold that thought. If you join us tomorrow, I'll kind of talk about that, because I had the same thought, because she's just that character we keep bringing up. Like, we don't know what. Okay, tomorrow we'll talk about it tomorrow. Tomorrow. It's a good theory.
Lauren, any other Ahsoka tidbits you took away that we need to consider for tomorrow?
I mean, I think that I'm trying to keep a high level, but I think as far as my high level thoughts go, I hit mine.
Okay.
So so the main reason why we were waiting for tomorrow for Ahsoka is that there is an Ahsoka panel.
Yep.
And so we want to make sure we bring that context from the panel and couple that with the trailer to be able to bring you guys kind of the most comprehensive coverage that we're capable of doing at this stage. So
yeah.
So that's the reason why we'll wait till tomorrow morning to do that one.
Yeah. The most comprehensive, like, irresponsible speculation and theory that we can possibly bring you as an audience, that'll be tomorrow. Yep.
That's what you're here for.
Yep. All right. Pull it up.
All right. The big news, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, all right. Well, hold on. Were y'all surprised that we actually got 3 movies kind of announced?
Lauren?
Not surprised, but I mean, I'm concerned, somewhat skeptical, but also open and excited to be proven wrong. So, I mean, that's
skeptical because you think there's a possibility they could get canned, like we've seen other recent announcements. Yeah, is that what you're going?
Yes, possibly about them being canned. Also, just about I just I don't want things. My concern is always that I don't want things to be rushed. 3 movies sounds like quite a lot, but if they can do it, then that's wonderful, and I'll be excited for that if it happens.
Jonesy, thoughts on that? Or?
I asked you guys.
Okay. Well, I would so to kind of piggyback on what Lauren was talking about. First off, I would say we don't know the timeline for any of this. Like not the historic timeline that we're showing here on the screen, right?
A release schedule.
We don't know the release schedule,
right?
So 3 movies could be 3 movies over the course of 9 years, or 3 movies over the course of 3 years. With Lauren, if it's 3 movies in 3 years, I got some concerns.
Right.
Okay. So number one, that aside, I don't mind. You really have to put this in the context, because the idea that, and this goes back to the interview. I'm gonna echo the interview that Kathleen Kennedy did with IGN.
Right.
Not part of Celebration, but just kind of as an aside, exclusive to them. She was talking about this. It was really interesting because I think you and I have been up here. We've talked about it. We've been kind of trying to echo this as much as we can to kind of temper expectations. I think we tend to get in our heads that when somebody comes out and announces something, that it's in production. And she does a really good job, I think, of kind of walking that line of saying, look, what we see at here's what I would say. Here's what we see at Celebration. I can't think of one thing that was announced at Celebration that didn't happen. Am I wrong?
Well,
because I'm not talking about the investors call, right?
Yeah,
but everything that they've come out and said, hey, this is happening, has happened.
Yeah,
because Rogue Squadron wasn't there.
What about Rangers of the New Republic, though?
No, that was announced at the D23 thing.
Oh, okay, was it?
Yeah. So here's what I'm saying. Here's where I'm going with this. There are a lot of, and this is what, and again, it's not me, it's mostly Kathleen Kennedy's interview today. She was saying that a lot of times this stuff is talked about, and yes, they do mention it in investor calls and stuff like that, but she brought up a good point about the Kevin Feige movie. Right? That movie was never in talks. And this is what we were saying on the show. like so much of this gets wrapped up because one news person picks it up and goes, oh, we hear there's a Kevin Feige movie. The next news agency picks it up, they run with it, and next thing you know,
it's fact.
It's fact, right? We've woven it into the fabric of Star Wars lore forever, or not lore, but just the history forever. And she was like, yeah, I understand this was like a fan thing, but she goes, I can tell you it was never discussed. It was just something we all made up in our heads. And I totally can see where that happens. Now, she was very quick to point out, like the Rogue Squadron one, she said wasn't dead.
Right.
Which, it's like it keeps dying and coming back, dying and coming back. But then if you think about it, like we've said before, if you go back and listen to see what she's actually said and what's officially been said, she's kind of walking a fine line here saying that, hey, you know, even though we're not doing it right now, same thing with the Rian Johnson movie. These things take a long time. They're still like on the plate. We still want to do them, but they're not technically dead. So it hasn't been buried, I guess is what I'm saying. So I don't want to give anybody false hope. What I want to do, what I am trying to say is when we get the announcement that there's going to be 3 movies like this at Celebration, for me, this has much more weight to it than an investor call or something that's set off, you know, off the cuff in an interview or on the spot kind of thing. But am I wrong for thinking that? Am I too hopeful and optimistic here?
No, I mean, they're 3 very different things with very different purposes, right? So you have the investor meetings, which is meant to give the people who you want to give you money and continue to invest your company. You want to give them an idea of what is to come, what makes you a compelling investment case. I mean, not to corporatize it, but that's exactly what those calls are. That's what they're for. That's the intention. That's what they deliver. That's what you get. Sometimes we get glimpses as to what our future as fans of consuming that content would be, right? Some of us are investors. I am not. Are you?
Not in Disney, no.
Right. So, but it's important to all the people who actually have money, not us.
Not us.
Yeah, that want to do this stuff, right? That want to invest in the company. That's the purpose of that. D23, again, is like a celebration light for us. It's a celebration of Disney overall. So that one I would put a little bit more stock in. If they're going to tell you that they're doing stuff, you are telling a bit of a fan community. It is not a pure fan community though, in that respect. But I can see why people would view D23 effectively very similar as they would a celebration. I'm definitely with you though. When you get in on celebration, we are telling you it's coming, right? And we may not tell you when it's coming, but this is what we're working on. And I think what Kathleen Kennedy really did a nice job of in this interview was also saying that we have this, we have these ideas, we have these movies, and they've kind of learned their lesson a little bit too, right? So these are new eras for us, but we're going to take this slow. We're going to make this movie. We're going to make, Dawn as a Jedi, for example. We're not announcing a trilogy. We're not announcing some big to-do, right? All of these exaggerated things. We're going to take it slow. We're going to say, how does this do? How do we do this? How does this feel? How do our fans react? Are people grabbing onto this? Did it work? And then we'll learn and grow from that. Mandalorian was very much like that.
She actually said that. She said it was similar to the approach they took with The Mandalorian.
Absolutely. And we've seen the dividends that's paid for us, right? We get a lot of content in between all of it. We've created a bit of a Filoni-verse, a Favreau-verse, a Mando-verse, whatever you want to call it, right? This was a hope, I think, but it wasn't necessarily the expectation that it would turn into that because they didn't know. Disney Plus was a whole new animal at this point. They weren't really sure what they were getting into.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is definitely all going to happen. I mean, they don't come out there and tell you Daisy Ridley is going to be in New Jedi Order, as a Jedi Master,
right?
Rey Skywalker, right?
Yeah.
Unless they're serious about it.
So, okay. So on that note, let's kind of talk quickly, and I'll get to Ms. Sunflower's question because I think it's a very important question here in just a second, but we have kind of what we've got, what they're calling the new timeline, which I think is pretty exciting, right? I mean, they've got the Dawn of the Jedi, which is in the far left-hand corner, right? The oldest we got, set 25,000 years in the past. Okay, now
finally, we're in the past.
Finally, in the past,
way in the past.
So far in the past, and for good or bad. But the one thing that bothers me about as much as you look back here, there's a lot of Old Republic stuff because I'm a big fan of that era, and I'll be the first to tell you. Going back 25,000 years scares the crap out of me because it's so far back. And what I feel like they've never really done a really good job of in Star Wars is even 25,000 years ago, stuff looks very similar to the stuff that we see in A New Hope. Like it's not that far back. It's not that old. And so it's such a long time. And you would like to think that the civilization kind of naturally, you know, or technology naturally occurred and evolved over those 25,000 years. But more than 25,000 years, it feels more like 500 years, right? Or maybe 1,000 years. So now the story that they're telling here with Dawn of the Jedi, this is supposed to be the beginning of the Jedi themselves, not the creation of the Force, unless they're going to change legends, right? Which
they keep saying origin of the Force, though, which bothers me a little.
And I think so. No, and you're right. And from a literal sense, the origin of the Force is out of scope, in my opinion. Right?
I agree.
What they're probably talking about is the origin of people manipulating, controlling the Force, which it does speak to the Dawn of the Jedi comics in that particular era, right?
Absolutely.
So that's 25,000 years in the past. And what I really also enjoyed too was they used the Jedi Prime kind of icon, which is that we saw it in The Last Jedi. It came out in the Art of book as well as the visual dictionary as well. But I love that they used that and stylized it to kind of represent that Dawn of the Jedi. So that's movie number one that they've announced. The person that's tied to this movie is Mangold.
Yeah, James Mangold. Yep.
And James Mangold is tied up right now. I mean, he's about to release a little movie called Indiana Jones 5. I'm not sure if you heard about it. No, it's a little indie film. It's going to be great.
I guess
did really well at Cannes. Yeah.
See what you did there.
So he's kind of tied up in that, right? So that's number one. And not only, this wasn't announced. I think I read this a little bit later, but not only is he directing it, but I think he's the primary writer.
He's writing it. Yeah.
So, and
I think that came out on Twitter much later. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was also in the interview with Kathleen Kennedy, and she had said that he's very passionate about Star Wars, that he's historically been in her ear constantly saying, I want to do Star Wars, but it just really hasn't been right.
Right.
But I mean, I think she completely, was willing to give him whatever he wanted to do. Now let's talk just quickly about this one. Not a lot was said. Daunting biblical epic,
right? Which
says a lot. I guess Lauren, when you hear daunting biblical epic, and you throw that into Star Wars, like what in the world could we possibly be doing and talking about here?
I mean, I kind of love the sound of that, honestly. I mean, I love like big mythology, and that is what that says to me. So I'm excited, and I'm hoping that maybe it has some similarities with the Dawn of the Jedi comic, because I really liked the mood and kind of like the tone of that. So if it has anything inspired by that and epic, I mean, I love that description. So I'm on board. That's the film I'm the most excited for, is this one.
Yeah. Wow. You?
I think it's the one I'm most excited for, but also a little bit scared about too, to be honest with you, because I think this is a film where when you talk about, and kind of to your point, when you go back to the beginning, everything that comes after is now hinged on this movie.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Because
we're not going back 10 years and you got,
everything we think we know, everything we think we believe, everything we think we've done a podcast about
is now Jeopardy.
It now feels like it's a bit in limbo, right? Until we get this content and confirm whether or not we really know the things that we know. That's exciting on some levels, though, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think getting that origin story, it's a fascinating idea of how do people become in tune with the Force? How do they become aware of it? How do they notice that something is different? How do they begin to find their way down that path? How do they begin to be aware of the dark side? I mean, there's so many compelling questions that you can answer within this that it's terrifying in some way, right? But it's super fascinating. I'm really excited when you talk about who would you like to have helm this type of project. Someone like a James Mangold is just a great option for you to be able to do it. And again, this is going to be taken with great care. This is going to go through a lot of processes. Again, it's in the writing process. So this isn't something we're getting anytime really soon. I think Miss Sunflower asked which movie would come first. Really difficult to say at this point. It seems like the New Republic movie would be the most ready to go from a everything around it type of thing. Or what would you have to take to get there with Dave Filoni piloting that project, right? Yeah. So that type of thing. And Miss Sunflower also asked if that was the Dawn of the Jedi symbol on the floor of Octo, and yes. It is. It's a slightly different version of it, but it is absolutely it. Yeah. It isn't more just vectorized. Yeah, that character is called Jedi Prime, right. The very first Jedi, and that was what was used. And
so the timeline doesn't, well, like it's hard to say. Like I was gonna say, the timeline doesn't really line up because if it's truly Dawn of the Jedi, if we're going back 25,000 years, at least from a Legends perspective, there are no Jedi, right? It's just people that are aware of the Force. The Force is kind of pulling them. There isn't good, there isn't bad. There are no lightsabers. Like this is a very like a primitive kind of galaxy at the time, and they're being heavily influenced by the Force until they realize they can then influence the Force, and that begins the rift and all that. So again, this is Legends. I'm not saying this is what we're going to get. The story's fascinating in itself, right? I mean, the idea of how Jedi became Jedi and the Sith and where they broke apart and kind of that dichotomy between them. We get into the Bogans and all this stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of really good stuff and really meaty stuff in there. It's really unclear as to what they're going to tell. But if you think about it from that, right, just that theme of the origins, it does feel biblical in the sense that there is a greater power and that suddenly people are enlightened by the power of God or by the power of the Force. And we get these biblical stories of nations being, leveled and fought over because of the Force. I mean, that's kind of where my head's at. And it's so different than what we've got in Star Wars. So this is pretty exciting stuff there, a new territory that I don't think we've ever thought we would get into.
It is. And Lauren, one of the comments that was made, I believe it was from Kathleen Kennedy. When we go back 25,000 years to Albert's point, you think the aesthetic should be 25,000 years ago. When we think about our culture in 25,000 years, I mean, you don't expect anything but grunting at that point, right? And a lot of hair. But 25,000 years of what they've said in this one is that don't expect to be going back to the Stone Age. How does the aesthetic, how much of the aesthetic needs to be like to feel truly antiquated to feel right for you? Like if you were to compare it with like an old Republic or a High Republic of what kind of like what Albert was saying, if it's not the Stone Age, quote unquote, does that bother you thematically or just, visually if it doesn't match that mental criteria that you've already got kind of defined in your head?
I mean, for me, I'm open to how they interpret it because I feel like I've always had the impression that with Star Wars, the past, I mean, you can go in the way, 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 way distant past, and it's just like a totally different concept of the past than like we have of our past. Like things just seem to progress slower or something. I don't, if that makes any sense. Like maybe there might be some slight differences with like technology or like the styles or kind of like, no lightsabers. I expect that we'll see some of those differences, but I'm not expecting like a huge major difference. I'm still hoping that even though we have some differences, I'm hoping we still have like a Star Wars feel. I think if it was too different, I think I would actually be more concerned about that.
Right. And I like the idea. The culture in Star Wars and the technology in Star Wars are so advanced that there is a lot of runway to go back in the past and feel like you're not really missing out on anything.
Yeah.
You don't have to go, you can go really far back and still have really advanced technology from our standpoint, right?
Yeah. Jeff brought up he says gonna get a Bendu cameo in Dawn of the Jedi era. I think we're all in favor of that. I'd love to see more Bendu, and he doesn't have to be the entity that he was in Rebels. He could be anything because it sounds like he can kind of take pretty much any form that he'd like. But I don't think, looking at this, if we're going back 25,000 years, the dawning of the Force, I mean, it's not far off. I hate to echo Mortis, but I don't think it's far off to think that we could possibly have Mortis characters or people of that era, right? As well. I mean, those guys have been around forever since the beginning, and they've kept the Force in balance and all that to kind of echo some of those Clone Wars episodes. But I think there's a lot of stuff there that they could certainly throw in as cameos. But at the same time,
how cool would it be if Mortis was the outcome of the Dawn of the Jedi?
It kind of ends in there?
Yeah. How cool would that be that's where they end up landing, that they have these characters that are able to fill those roles because of the vital and the importance of it.
Yep. I like that idea.
Same.
Okay, well, let's see. Do we got anything else on Dawn of the Jedi? Nope. So James Mangold, like we talked about. Okay, so let's move into, I guess, the New Republic. Just, again, we're just kind of taking this chronologically. Quickly in the timeline, don't go off the screen because they did change this now, right? So Dawn of the Jedi is 25,000 years ago. Fall of the Jedi, I think that's been renamed. I can't remember if that's been in the novels.
I believe that's been there, yeah.
Okay.
They've kind of redefined the prequel era.
Right. Reign of the Empire, then we get into Age of Rebellion, we kind of got that back from the comics 2-3 years ago now. The New Republic, Rise of the First Order, and then finally the New Jedi Order, NJO.
NJO.
We're going to talk about NJO here in a little bit. But the next movie is going to be set in New Republic. This is the one we talked about earlier, being directed by Dave Filoni, probably going to be written by Dave Filoni. And I would expect that this was the event that during the D23 investors call, when we had the big dog and pony show, right? When they announced Rangers of the New Republic and all the other stuff that was coming out. Again, Kathleen Kennedy mentioned that they were all kind of working. She called it an event at that time.
Right.
And maybe things have changed. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But it feels like this is kind of what she was hinting at back then. So that's good to know that they at least had this in mind as far back as 3 years ago. And they've been working towards this. But I would expect that we're going to see Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, Skeleton Crew, Ahsoka, components of that, maybe other series yet to come down the path here in the next 2-3 years, before this movie gets released. I think all of that is going to play into that Heir to the Empire movie. What do you think?
You slipped that one.
Oh,
there.
sorry. I didn't mean to say that.
Wow. Yeah, you just slipped that right in there.
Whoa.
Well,
Trying to trick you.
Yeah, I tell you, man, you got to watch this guy.
Saying Heir to the Empire would be a good idea.
All right, Joris.
Yeah.
I'll mispronounce the name again if you're not careful. Yeah. But I think this is probably the most ready-made, right? Again, everything you just said, we have all of the components already ready. We know what this is all. We know where the feeders are for this content. If it all is going to be a true, pinnacle and I don't know, the climactic exploration of Thrawn or whatever this might be. All of the seeds are there. Was this going to be like a Rangers of the New Republic, or is it a Rogue Squadron type of thing? Is this taking the places of some of those? Kind of feels like that answer might be maybe, but again, I'm with you. I think that there are other things at play, like Rangers of the New Republic, who could still come around and feed more into this really big movie type of event here. Now, it's really curious, I think, when you think about Kathleen Kennedy, is it one, or is there the opportunity for more than one? We're not getting tight on this timeline here. Everything leading up to the First Order, but there's a lot of things in play here.
And there's a lot of years in play.
There are, but again, it's that runway is shortening every day that we get more content, right? So it is becoming a bit more dense and more compact of what we have. We have a lot of things to get to, right? But but I think, again, this is ready-made. I think this is ready for Dave Filoni. It's what they're playing in. It's where all the action figures are at. They're already out on the floor. So now it's the opportunity to throw a couple more in there and you really build this really grand scale and bring it to it. And, the idea of identifying who an heir, lowercase h, the rightful heir is, I think it is a compelling idea. And bringing that into Thrawn, I love the play on the Legends titles and the Legends ideas. Those are something that we've always enjoyed. We like. Are they a little bit different? Yes, but it's really cool to be able to get Heir to the Empire mentioned by Ahsoka, even if it's in passing and even if it's maybe a bit of a meaningless statement in her respect, but again, an expectation of the Empire about what's to come and that they're not dead and they're never quite gone, right?
Yeah.
So I really like that this is continuing. This is a trend that's going to continue, I think. And again, it's going to hopefully bring, in Kathleen Kennedy's words, where we have something for kind of every phase of, past, current, if you will, and future. And I think this is a great approach to being able to do this, of being able to bounce around the timeline with content.
So, Lauren, there was a comment that was made, and I think it was Kathleen Kennedy who said this line. Maybe you keep me honest here, Jonesy, but this movie from Dave Filoni, set in the New Republic, would close out what we know as the Mandoverse, right? So this would everything that's been leading up, right, season 5 of Mandalorian or wherever that is. This is going to be the final thing, and I hear that and I think, oh crap! I guess he dies and he's gonna go out in a hero's death, right, in this final movie. I know you're already shaking your head. Don't worry, we'll talk about the baby here in a little bit.
But Bo-Katan dies, and he goes back to Omar.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a better idea.
I don't like
actually.
that either. I don't like it. Yeah.
There's just no pleasing you tonight.
Yeah. But when you hear that, is that like, are you thinking, so the end of the Mandoverse, does that mean we are like 5 years ahead? Is this 10 years ahead? I mean, we've only got a 20-year runway here ish.
About 15,
I have to do the math, yeah, but somewhere on that. But I guess what emotions or feelings when you are evoked when you hear that this could be the end of the Mandoverse, and how far out do you think that's going to go?
It's hard to say, because do we even have an exact number of how many Mandalorian seasons we're going to have?
No. I mean, recently Favreau had said that he was willing to kind of let this ride out.
17 or 18.
Okay, not that many.
Yeah, so
no, he didn't say that many.
But he was like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, he just kind of, until the story is told.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah,
Okay.
that's probably fair.
So in that case, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint. Like, I mean, I do think that this having a film to have all of these storylines come together and kind of be like the thing that they're all leading towards, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's a good idea to have something to kind of like put a nice little bow on all of those once they actually get to the point where they're ready for that. But I could see that being very far into the future.
Yeah. So
I think this is like a 3 to 5 year project away. Very much to what Lauren is saying. I think that there's more things they want to develop. I think the cautionary point is making sure that the content that you're producing in the interim feels like it's meaningful and it has stakes and you have to continue to push that envelope, and you're not just waiting for something that's an eventuality, and we're not taking any chances along the way, and we're, for lack of a better word, comfortable. And I don't really believe that that's what would happen, but you could see where you would start to say, well, I know where I need to go, and so I can't do too many things out of it if I define that point too clearly right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, that they have a plan is something that we have to say thank you, because we've been complaining about it for years that, you know, with the movies and with the sequel trilogy, it suffered because it didn't have as much of a clear, pure plan of what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
I think having a sense of progress, that could be something that they could, it would make me kind of anticipate that movie more if we could get a little bit more of a sense of like, maybe we don't know exactly what we're headed towards yet, but we know we're headed towards something. I mean, I would like to see that emphasized a little bit more leading up to that movie. And if they do that, then that's great.
Yep. The other, I guess the one thing that I think about when I hear that this is taking place in the New Republic and it's leading up to a big event, a cinematic event, right? That opens up a lot of opportunities just from a storytelling, you know, the special effects. We've got larger budgets. There's things that we can do there. It doesn't sound like there's going to be a trilogy of movies, at least right now. Like if they're saying this is the end, well, maybe it is the end. And then
no commitment to it at the release.
Right. No commitment to a trilogy. But I do wonder if if Filoni is going to make good on, and again, this is not a retcon, because the way I always rationalize it, let's talk about Luke Skywalker just really quickly. You know, when we get to Last Jedi, I know a lot of the people were upset with The Last Jedi because we didn't get Luke in his prime, right? And he was kind of the character that he was, love him or hate him at that point. But in my head, I always rationalize it. Okay, well, that's fine. That's him then. There was a lot of time that happened in between there. And I'm sure he was that character. We just didn't get to see it. And when I see that we're getting this kind of set in this era, I'm starting to think that you can't have a big cinematic, climactic, galaxy impacting event in Star Wars set in this era when dude is hanging out and he's not in hiding. It feels like this is going to be an opportunity to bring Luke Skywalker into the fold and have a major role to play in all this. And I think he can do that and complement like a Din Djarin or a Bo-Katan or, you know, maybe even Ahsoka or whatever. It feels like this is kind of like that team. But then where I wrestle with this though is like, what is that end? Like Thrawn to me doesn't feel like enough, but Thrawn and Jorah Sabayoth maybe could be enough to threaten the galaxy at that level.
I don't see you wrestling with this at all. I think you're being dishonest with our listeners tonight.
Yeah. It doesn't take me hard. It doesn't take me very long to get there.
No, you've been. I will give you credit. You have kept all this in check pretty much all day long.
Yeah. So except when we almost killed each other, where I almost killed you with driving when they said "Heir to the Empire" in the trailer, and I almost.
So this was funny though. So we were in the car. We're going to go get coffee this morning because we had an early start. We're listening to it in the car, and they say this, and we just look at each other. And Albert screams, not quite like a young child, but
yeah,
pretty close.
A girl.
And
yeah.
so
Childlike.
Childlike. Thank you.
And so it has been raining. It's really been kind of really crummy weather down here lately. And so a slight moment of fear for my life. And Discord posted a nice picture or a GIF of what it would have looked like.
Or what it felt like. Yeah.
Definitely would have felt like. Yeah. I was like, you sure you're okay, bro?
Yeah, I was not.
But it's super exciting though, to be able to even think about this.
Well, and all I'm saying is like, and we'll talk about like Yuzhan Vong in a little bit. Because we already talked about that too. But I just wonder, like, with Luke Skywalker, that presence, and you've got characters like Din Djarin who kind of moving up in the ranks. You've got Bo-Katan who's moving up in the ranks. Presumably, Mandalore is now part of a sovereign planet, part of the New Republic. Maybe not. Either way, they've coalesced. They're a force to be reckoned with. Like, there's a lot of power here. So who the heck is who's putting the offense on them?
I mean, you're right. I mean, Luke Skywalker is always the elephant in the room in this time frame, and it's also
Bantha in the room.
Bantha in the room. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah,
I can't even say Mammoth. I got to say Bantha every time.
Yep.
Dang it! I'll get this right eventually. It's my first day. But yes, that Luke Skywalker would be there. Also, any of the other characters that come later in the sequel trilogy, even like the Han and Leia's with Ben Solo, who is still waiting to have his first words in Star Wars. So I mean, it's if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it. All right.
That's terrible.
So I mean, but those are the characters. Like, okay, how do they start working their way in? Is the intent that we will bridge to the First Order specifically, or no? We're going to start. We are going to cut off, or we're going to angle a little away from that end game target. But I like the idea, though, that I mean, can you imagine Luke Skywalker, Bo-Katan, the Armorer, Din Djarin, Jude Law's character if he survives out of that series or whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, your growing number of characters that you like, Ahsoka, Sabine, all these, like, okay, what is it that would bring them all together, and who all would actually come together?
Yeah.
Luke seems to give zero cares about the rest of the galaxy at this point. Just going to be call a spade a spade.
Sure.
So would he even be part of that? I almost like it. He's not, but you have to explain why not, if that makes sense.
Well, I think they also said that he had. I mean, they call him a legend, right? So,
right.
I mean, the legend could be that he saved Darth Vader in the galaxy, right? That may be enough, but I think I always read that as there were more adventures, legendary adventures, and we never got them, and this seems like an opportunity to do so. But
right. I mean, this is also like you continue the story of Grogu, right? So how does Grogu continue to grow? And then does he show up in other later content?
Well, that's a good segue, because let's move quickly to the final piece of that, which is New Jedi Order.
Yeah, the new Yuzhan Vong Order.
Yuzhan Vong. Okay, so the tail of the tape on this one, Charmin Obaid Chinoy, who is the person behind Miss Marvel.
Yep, she was the most notably for that one, but she's got 2 Academy Awards, I believe. So,
sure,
I mean, so many things behind her name already, even in a young career.
Set 15 years after the events of Rise of Skywalker. So 15 years later, we've got Rey as a Jedi Master, and she's in the early stages of trying to build up this Jedi Order. And again, going back to the interview with Kathleen Kennedy a little bit later through IGN, she kind of confirmed that she is, and this is where I was like, oh, really? This doesn't feel like the right thing to do. But she is trying to do this in, I guess, the way Luke taught her, which felt like that feels like that she was supposed to have learned something like that. Really wasn't the right way to do it. But I mean, I'm open to whatever at this point. But that's all we really have on this point. We'll get into some of the speculation here. But Lauren, how are you feeling about the new Jedi Order? And I'll put you on the spot. Could we see a Grogu? Could we see a Finn? Could we see a Broom Boy? I know I'm not making this up, right? But
will Chewbacca die?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Will it be a Vector Prime all over again?
I do think we would have to see a Grogu, because I feel like the way that they've established Grogu, we're gonna see him in the future. So I would be really surprised if there was no Grogu in this at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that with this time period, there are so many characters that they could kind of like expand their stories. So I'm not sure if I would expect Grogu to be front and center, like kind of like you mentioned, like Finn, for example. That's a character that I feel like we really need his story to be expanded a little bit more to kind of do that character justice. So I think that there's like a lot of choices that they could go with as to which characters they would want to emphasize.
And this is the opportunity that they have, for, hesitate to say another sequel trilogy, but to continue the story of the Skywalker lineage in some way and being able to say, this is what's next. And again, by not committing to a trilogy and putting that pressure on someone, I think it's a fantastic move. I think this is the best move they could possibly make, because if you don't get to a, let's just say, Finn story right away, you could cameo that in, and you can leave that door open for you if it's not within the context of this. Now, granted, Finn and every other stormtrooper in the First Order are all Force sensitive. So Rey has a built-in new Jedi Order to just build from already, right?
Yeah.
That's what I took from Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, everybody's Force sensitive?
Everybody's Force sensitive.
Sure.
Well, all the stormtroopers.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But Poe's not, even though he's like, slow motion going through everything in Last Jedi. I'm still a little bit bitter about that. I'm not going to lie. Biggest complaint about Last Jedi is Poe not being force sensitive.
Yeah.
That sounds
He
about
should have
right.
been, but yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it's cool that there's an opportunity for this to come back around and be able to see what comes next. I mean, what does Rey do with this? What did it mean? What did she learn from Luke? What did she continue to learn from all of the Jedi that are now part of her, right? And that history.
Ancient Jedi texts.
But okay.
Sorry, just had to scream that.
Are they going to write the ancient Jedi text in Dawn of the Jedi? We're going to see that?
Well, yeah, the origin of the books.
There we go. We have solved
Yeah.
all we
I
have
want
solved
to
all
see
the
the
go.
books being written.
That's right. All the plot points have been evaluated now by the Cantina cast.
It's a good one. I like that.
But I like this idea that we'll revisit some of this and come back and see what it is that was truly different. Answer those questions maybe once and for all. And we'll see if we like the answers or not, right?
Yeah. Okay, so a couple quick thoughts on this one. 15 years, good. I like the fact that we're getting a time jump. That's enough time for the galaxy to kind of settle in, right? It puts us in that kind of in the era of where we are with the New Republic. I mean, we were what, like 5 years past Jedi, Return of the Jedi?
Right.
But maybe a little bit further out that. But it's a clean slate. It certainly gives us hope that somebody like Grogu could be alive. We were talking, I think at Torchies of all places, we were talking about Finn. And I'd love to see him, kind of be a Jedi, but maybe not necessarily be a part of this. And like you said, maybe a cameo. He makes the call that spins into something else, right? There's possibilities there to kind of branch us out in a lot of different ways. I think the thing that I really have been kind of spending the most time thinking about is, again, who is the antagonist? Like, what is the threat? With, the balance is always, the power is always in balance. The force is always in balance, right? You've got powerful light rising. So where's the powerful dark that the force is going to naturally bring to the galaxy? And I think you and I both talked about, as much as this is kind of a controversial topic, I know a lot of people didn't like them, but it does feel like something like the Yuuzhan Vong could be a very interesting aspect of, I wouldn't call it the force, because it's not really force sensitive, right? But certainly to the mythology of the force, or the inner workings of the force, and that having something like that, it's similar to like the Leveler in the High Republic, right? That was a take that we had never really seen, and we see the Jedi struggle with that. And just when Rey and her new Jedi Order think they've got it all solved, right? They've got the ancient Jedi text, they're following Luke Skywalker's thing, everything is wonderful, and they've never been able to prepare or plan for something like this, because they're the Yuuzhan Vong, for anybody who doesn't know, are these beings that negate the force, right? It doesn't work on them, and
it withdrew from them basically as punishment. Yeah.
So it's an interesting, like, beyond that. I mean, then sure, we can get into the rise of the Sith all over again, or just evildoers in general. But I don't know. It feels like we're not that far removed where that would feel like, okay, we're just kind of coming back to where we were 15 years ago, and maybe that's not enough time to pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very polarizing topic, especially these days, where when you and I were younger people, watching or reading these books and experiencing it, the fandom was very split about the Yuuzhan Vong.
Yeah.
Right. They did not like him for whatever reason. But the thing that they did most successful was that they actually posed a legitimate threat to the Jedi and to the New Republic.
Unquestionable.
Yeah. They infiltrated it. They were terraforming everything. They had these world machines that no one had an answer for. The Jedi couldn't use all of their manipulation tactics, right? And all of that. So when you think about even content with with the High Republic, you think, what is the greatest threat to the Jedi? It's someone or something like the Yuuzhan Vong in some kind of way. Are they going to go that route? I have no idea. It seems a bit unlikely, but at least it makes sense to me in that regard, that this is something that a group that could be very, very dangerous to all of the above. Now, what you can also do within that context is you can also bring in the Sith if you wanted to continue the Jedi versus Sith type of, themes that we have, which I think are really interesting and fun. We've done it a ton of times, but they're great, right? That's Star Wars in a nutshell for a lot of people. It can be under the veil of something like the Yuuzhan Vong as well, right? That's another plot that gets worked in. We're used to working in threes with Star Wars anyway, right?
Yeah.
Not just trilogies, but just 3-part acts, but also 3 storylines going simultaneously, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of opportunity in this space, because really you finally let go of a lot of you have a history, but the entire road ahead of you now feels like, okay, we've let enough time go by. We can set a new path as a organization or as a corporate company of Lucasfilm. We're now settled, I think, a bit more than where we were back then. We went into Disney. We think we got to churn out a movie. We have to do it every year. It's a very different frame of mind of where we're at. So I think there's a lot of chances that we can take here. And again, by not committing necessarily to a trilogy, we can see how well these are going to work and see which direction we want to go in.
So, Lauren, when you hear New Jedi Order, what comes to mind? What are you thinking? What are you going to like? What are you wanting to see that far ahead in the future?
Yeah, it is. It's tricky for me to try to, like what y'all were saying, it's tricky for me to think of any sort of antagonist that wouldn't feel like a rehash of something that we've done recently. I like the Yu Zhongvong aspect. I'm not 100% sure if they would go in that direction, but I think it would be a cool way to do something different. Yeah, I mean, I also would like to see sometimes if it's like if every story we have a massive threat that's potentially world ending, it does start to feel a little bit repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if it's a threat, I don't know. I'm trying to put this in a way that doesn't sound boring, but maybe
Hey, we're just spitballing here.
Taxation, high taxation coming from the New Jedi Order.
Maybe a smaller scale threat rather than something larger than life. Maybe something that they have to work out within, like amongst themselves. Like, how are we going to set this up? Maybe something that's not quite so massive that might let it still feel fresh. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, earlier today we did start to bridge the gap of purchase orders in Star Wars.
Yeah, no, for sure. We actually got into that topic.
So we've got into purchase goods and services with purchase orders and requisitions. So we have gone to a new era.
I don't even remember how we got on that topic, but I feel embarrassed now, to be honest. So where was I going with all this?
I don't know.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, either way, 15 years ahead, I'm all for it. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Jeff kind of threw a couple things in here I do want to touch on quickly. At least we're on the current topic of New Jedi Order. He says, what would be pretty cool to see is the antagonist in the New Jedi Order film, the Evereni, go full circle on the High Republic era. So maybe we get a rebirthing or a second coming of the Evereni, Marchion Row descendants, that sort of thing. I'd be down for that.
Yeah,
we'll
I like
see.
that idea.
Yep. One thing that I feel like, so when you think about New Jedi Order, like for me, one of the things that I think is synonymous with the New Jedi Order is the legacy of the original trilogy characters, right? Their offspring, all the freaking drama that came with all the offspring and their offspring right down the road. And we don't really have that, right? With this, at least the way the galaxy turned out by this point, the Solos are done, right? Rest in peace, Ben Solo. Maybe Rey's got a baby. I think she does. We'll talk about that later. And then on top of that, we don't have. Well, Luke has no kids, so where's this going to go? Like, it feels like that's like all I'm saying is it feels like that was a component of the New Jedi Order that we don't have here. Is it going to be the offspring of Din and Bo-Katan that's involved in this? Second coming. Is it going to be Grogu? I don't know. That legacy component feels like it's missing, and I could get there, but it's going to get real hot here real fast.
I think that's part of the. I think that's part of the opportunity and the potential excitement of it, though, too, right? Of defining what is Star Wars from an ongoing story perspective into the future for the next, like truly for the next generation, and that can really cast off. Not cast off. I don't mean in a negative way or a relief kind of way, but you have truly moved on from the legacy Skywalker line, and this is something completely different. I think this is where having Rey as a more focused character, without characters like Poe or Finn or others muddying the waters or bringing a lot of that sequel trilogy aspect, but make it a Rey focused story, a Jedi focused story, really could take the franchise in a very different direction than what we've had before, where it's been very much rebellion and empire. Sure, it's been Jedi versus Sith, but a lot of it's been rebellion and empire for a big chunk of that in the post Republic, type of phase, if you will. So I like that you have a bit of a blank slate in front of you in that regard, and you can say, okay, Rey, you're that character to take us forward. Let's see what this first movie can do. Let's find that story. We got to find that right story. To your point, But I think it's open for a lot of conversation and a lot of debate in the writers' room about where do we want to take this? And again, what is it something that do we get that right feel for a story that we can then take forward and make something out of at some point, potentially, but let's focus on telling a good story right now and not really having a whole lot of limitation, except that we're dealing with Jedi again.
So children conceived 2 years after the Rise of Skywalker. Hold on, just you're already shaking your head and rolling your eyes.
No, I saw when you drift.
Well, I know. I was looking back here because
there's a mathematical thing back here about children making. Apparently,
there is. I was
calculating.
I was looking for inspiration, but I'm thinking like, wait a minute. So we have. I mean, okay. So don't get me wrong. I guess where I'm stuck now is I was thinking, okay, legacy characters, the offspring, right, the generational stuff. But okay, so that can't happen for the reasons I already mentioned. But we do have new legacy characters in the sequel trilogy. So could we get a baby between Rey and somebody else? Could it be Finn's child? Could it? Because I'm thinking, if anybody was conceived 2 years, just stay with me. You're smirking, but 2 years after the events of Rise of Skywalker would put a kid at around the age of 13, could possibly be Force sensitive, could be part of the new Jedi Order, and I still get that legacy component. I'm trying to get there.
I think
with this.
For me, the legacy would have, rather than it being about offspring, I'm expecting it would be people who were influenced by Luke's teachings or by the teachings of the Jedi in general. So like,
Broom Boy.
Yeah, like Broom Boy. Like I think it would be much more of not a biological family aspect, but like these are my people who, who have come after me that learned. That's kind of my thought.
I got to be honest, the one thought that comes to mind is whether or not we will finally get Grogu's first words in this movie.
I think it's still too early. I think we'll still be in Goo Goo Gaga.
Yeah, this kid will never grow up. Like we've got to go ahead like 400 years in the future before he says anything,
right?
To understand him.
This is the way.
Okay, well, I don't know. We can talk more about this. Jonesy and I were talking about we probably are going to do some additional spin-off shows here at some point to kind of speculate again recklessly on where this possibly could go. And I will certainly start getting out the genealogy books and start looking at, who could have offspring set during this time. But this is exciting stuff. All joking aside, the fact that we're getting Rey and Daisy Ridley coming out, we didn't even talk about that. I mean, she coming out on stage, I mean, she looked phenomenal. I think you've got the image up right here. She was glowing. The audience went freaking crazy. Lacey from the Resistance broadcast,
Tears, yeah.
She's a huge friend of ours, but she was a huge Rey fan. She was in tears literally after seeing this, and I saw those same posts from a number of people. So we talked about this many years ago when The Force Awakens was first announced, and certainly when The Last Jedi came out. Rey is an iconic character. She is the Luke Skywalker for so many thousands of fans, and the opportunity for her to come back and reprise this role is exciting. Whatever it turns out to be, good for her, and I'm glad to see that she's going to continue on as part of this franchise.
It's exciting to get just movie announcements, period, and feel like these
that's fair too,
and feel like these are real, right?
Yeah,
I think that's exciting. I mean, this is what we've been wanting for, it's been 6 years since about 5.5 years since Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
So we've been in a drought for a while now. Again, we're probably still 2-3 years away, I would think, for anything. But that we have the roadmap in front of us. We have the ideas where we're going. This is really exciting. I mean, this is really, really, really fun stuff. And these are ideas over the next 6 to 12 months. I expect we'll be able to revisit some of these conversations and see what has changed, what's evolving, what other media news has gone out there that's not official that we will speculate on anyway, responsibly. Responsibly, Albert.
Not a word that we have use around here.
Eye contact, responsibly.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Dad. Okay, so before we get out of here, so Lauren, Miss Sunshine asked the question. I'm going to go to you first. If you had to rank these in terms of release date, which movie are we going to get first, second, and third?
Ooh. Okay. I think Dawn of the Jedi first. I think New Jedi Order second, and New Republic is going to be last because we have a long way to go, I think.
So you're taking them in almost in the order, right? Chronological order.
Except with New Republic last.
Oh, you got New Republic last. Okay.
Yeah, because I think we've got a few more seasons of Mando before that happens.
Okay, so she's going Dawn of the Jedi, New Jedi Order, New Republic.
Right.
What are you doing?
I'm going to do New Republic first, and then I will do New Jedi Order, and then finish with Dawn of the Jedi.
I am going to. I'll just. I think I'm more in line with that, but because Daisy Ridley came out, and this is probably something they've already been working on, I'm going to go on a limb and say this is the first one. So I'm going to go New Jedi Order, New Republic, Dawn of the Jedi.
Since they brought Daisy Ridley out, I'm right there with you. Like I had to really think hard about what I wanted. Like why would this not be first? But I just couldn't quite get there.
Yeah.
Like I think it's still probably just earlier developed. We're just so far along with New Republic stuff. So
well, the good thing is we've covered all the bases, so we can say the Cantina Cast was correct, whatever the outcome was. So we've got that going for us at this point. All right.
Everything great comes in threes.
Okay, so we said the show was going to be an hour, and we're right on time. Before we get out of here, Lauren, any kind of final thoughts or any comments about day one of Celebration 2023?
Well, it was a jam-packed day one, so it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the weekend goes.
Jonesy?
Yeah, I mean, we're off to a great start. We got a full day tomorrow. We thought we were going to do other things, but probably sit in front of a computer all day again. So this is great. I mean, I'm really excited for where we're at.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, this is day one. This is probably going to be the biggest day. I mean, hopefully they have surprises in store for us. I think from here on out, we're going to get more background context of some of the stuff that was already announced. I don't expect we'll get any major announcements at this point, but you never know. I mean, this is if there's one place to do it, it's going to be at Celebration, and certainly I would expect them to do it tomorrow because usually by Sunday things are kind of winding down at the convention. Like
I don't know this year. I think Sunday is going to be jam packed too.
Okay, we'll see. Definitely by Monday though.
Okay.
Okay. No, by Monday we're not going to get anything. So I guess what I'm saying is I think there's a possibility we could still get some big surprises. I think this was probably all we're going to get, and there's certainly a lot more to talk about. We've got more shows coming tomorrow. We've got one at 10 a.m. Central. We've got another at
7 p.m.
7 p.m. Central as well. Let's see. You want to give kind of credit to some of the. We had a lot of people. I mean, I don't even know how many people showed up for this show tonight. So thank you everybody who stuck around for it, or even just came by for a few minutes to tap in and say hello and kind of hear us talk about our thoughts on day one.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Again, we got 5 more shows, like I was saying, 2 more tomorrow, 2 Sunday, and 1 on Monday. And thank you for coming out to the live stream. Jonathan Music Train, Miss Sunflower, J.R. Eaton, Jeff, Ash, Dale, Chef Chris, Alex, Lego Cat, Charlie, Darth Pikachu, and Katya. If I missed anybody, my apologies, but wonderful to have everybody out there. Everybody in the background, please do come by and say hi next time. We would love to be able to get your comments on screen and be able to talk to you. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today, too.
Yes, it was fun.
After a busy workday, too. Hey, so where, if they're not already subscribed, where can they find us?
Well, they're already in the right place, but yeah, cantinacast.com/YouTube. And again, that's where you're going to find all of Lauren's amazing commentary. Well, comments,
too, yeah.
And comments, on
Yeah.
Jedi Novel Archive. Cataclysm just came out from Lydia Kay.
Oh, let her.
Yeah, you do it. Yeah, why am I doing this?
What do you got coming out?
He's getting into old habits.
It's because he's used to doing it.
You were really talking me up, which is more than I probably would have done. So I still appreciate it. Yes, I do have my new video for Cataclysm out. That book just came out, so I have a video with all of the kind of like my general thoughts and also plot details and spoilers. If you haven't read the book yet, so you don't want to watch spoilers, I also have another video that I posted last week, which is pre-spoilers. So either way, you're covered on Cataclysm.
And what do you got after this?
Coming up, I do have some High Republic, like younger reader novels that are going to be my next priority. So we're getting close to the end of phase 2. So it's getting interesting.
Yeah. And we are going to come back and do a phase 2 kind of wrap up show.
Are we?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we are. And Laura will be a part of that as well. So yeah, stay tuned for that, Jonesy. Jonesy, anything? What else do we want to talk about?
Well, and I think again on the Jedi Novel Archive aspect of things, if you're a High Republic fan, you have the Blade out there too from the comics. You've got some Yoda content. I know that's not just High Republic. So Lauren's covering a lot of different material right now. So you're going to want to get out there. The story developing with Yoda is very interesting. And so I know that's coming in the future as well when that series wraps up. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to that part of the channel because there's so much great content and she's bringing it to you pretty much every week right now.
Yep. The last bit of news before we get out of here, we do have a show that we've got in the works right now. We've got a number of questions that have already been submitted, but we're long overdue for one of these Q&A shows that we do, right? So if you go out to cantinacast.com/question, there's a form there. You fill that out. Your questions will make their way over to us. Lauren is going to be a part of that episode because, one, we want her there, but two, that's going to be our 500th episode, at least unless some crazy thing happens. This should be our 500th episode, and so we thought, what better way to...
Numbered it. I think we're like on episode like 600.
Oh, yeah, whatever. It's fine. But 500 numbered officially. We're going to celebrate that by answering your questions. So pretty much anything is in play as long as it's Star Wars related. We'll answer the questions. And if you're a Patreon member, your question kind of bumps to the top. So if we run out of time, we'll do the Patreon members first. But if you get a chance, please submit your questions. And there's been plenty of things that were announced today, things that are going to be announced this week and in the weeks to come, especially with the Mando finale coming up as well. Lots of stuff out there that, if you want our opinions and want to prove us wrong, here's the opportunity to do so.
That's what everyone lives for.
Yeah, proving us wrong. Okay. Anything else? Lauren, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Nope. I'm excited about tomorrow, though.
Jonesy?
Hey, thanks for everyone kind of bearing with us on the audio differences from being in person. There's a completely different set of challenges, so we'll see if we can iron a couple of those things out tomorrow.
Yep. We got to get that keyboard out of here.
Yeah, the keyboard is really in the way.
Yeah.
But thank y'all. We appreciate it. We hope y'all will come around tomorrow, too.
Yeah. So 11 hours from now is when we'll see you next. So until then, here's the credits, and thank you guys for joining us tonight.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.